Does Regency Slice of Life sound like a good time to you? Go read it.
Does a book where a kiss at the end between two people who have professed they love each other and that they plan to get married, but they are currently unmarried sound scandalous? You should read this book. It's gonna be a great time.
Hi. Hello. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of Unresolved Textual Tension. My name is Elin, also known as Lindberg. I am here today with my lovely co host, Maria.
Hi, guys.
And we are doing The Other Bennet Sister by
Oh, Janice, let's see,
Janice
Lidlow?
Janice Lidlow.
Lidlow.
Janice Hadlow? Janice Hadlow?
Yep, Janice Hadlow. So, we were close. We were in the ballpark.
If we did not remember her name because she isn't worth remembering.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
It's because we're bad at memorizing authors' names 90% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we did this book because the other Bennett sister just had a BBC remake, or not remake, but adaptation that has come out that has been, and I don't know if Will picked it for this reason, but it has been popping up all over.
It was actually one of our lovely patrons on Discord. They tagged me in something and were like, "Hey, I really wish you guys would cover this." It's the author tries to write in a Jane Austen style, and I suppose they were harkening back to the days of when you guys did your Jane Austen-y things together. So I took a look at it and I was like, okay, that sounds rather fun. And also the new TV show coming out, I thought could be a fun way to sort of juxtapose the book towards the show. So I convinced him.
That's awesome. And honestly, it was a nice break. We'll talk about like overall thoughts about the book, but it was nice to, as I think I've mentioned before, and Elon actually hasn't had a chance to talk on this, but Will and I did, like, big fans of like Jane Austen adaptations. Watched almost every version of the things I can get my hands on. And I love the novels. Elon, what's your history with Austen?
I was raised on 1995 BBC Pride and Prejudice, and then I went on to read the book as an adult, for which I am thankful because I would not have appreciated the book as a wee teen, but as an adult, I thought it was rather delightful. From there, I went on to read Emma and Sense and Sensibility. I have watched quite a few of the filmatizations, including Northanger Abbey, one of the lesser known.
Ones, yeah.
And I'm a fan. I find the kind of quiet drama of everyday life for nobility in these eras to be very, very
Yes.
like a delightful little treat.
This is like my version of a beach read. Like when I think of something that's like comfort and cozy, but also like hysterical, like this Austen really fits a lot of that. What is, if you don't mind me asking, what is your favorite Austen work?
Good question. I think out of the ones I recall, and it might be because it's my most recent read, but I think it might be Emma, because I appreciated how Emma went from a character I really could not empathize with or feel with into a character I was rooting for towards the end. Yeah.
Yep, it's the most beautiful thing of Emma is how Austen takes a character that you kind of just want to smack around a bit and then makes you sympathize with her, and at the end you're like, yeah, go girl, you did it.
Yeah, towards the middle, you're like, "Go! What are you doing with your
What are you
life?
doing?
Why are you flouncing about? And this guy you're kind of hanging out with now, he's no good."
You are insufferable, girl. Get it together. I think everyone knows who has. You might not know, dear viewers, because you might not have watched the Persuasion video that Will and I did in preparation for the Netflix Persuasion movie, which was terrible. But Persuasion is my favorite Austen work. By a long shot. I love it so much. That book is, I would say, one of her most earnest ones in a lot of ways.
Oh.
Uh, but yeah, so it was really, I was very excited before even, like, starting to read this about doing this one, and then I did see that the Other Bennet Sister has kind of blown up on, like, TikTok and Instagram, like, there's a lot of clips going around and
Oh.
a lot of talk about it, and which is hysterical because as Evelyn and I were just talking, it's, like, impossible to find. We both wanted to watch a few episodes in preparation for this.
We were so catfished by this TV show.
I can't it's, like and then, Elin even said she got BritBox so she could, like, try see and that it wasn't even available on there.
Yeah. I googled how to stream The Other Bennet Sister in Sweden because that is my location at this time. And I got like zero hits. Like usually you get a good hit at the top. I got
Mhm.
zero good hits. So I scrolled down a bit and it came up with Amazon Prime. I was like, okay, I'll pay a month of Amazon Prime to watch this.
Yeah.
And I went into Amazon Prime and it was like, no, not available in your region. Then I went to BritBox and I was like, okay, fine, I will pay for BritBox. I usually don't like to because I think it's a little expensive for the amount of shows they have. But okay, I'll pay for BritBox. I want to see this. And I Google it and it just comes up with nothing. And I'm like, what? What is going on? Why is this show so hard to
It's hard to
find?
find, like, I'm just a girl who wants my historical Regency drama,
Yeah,
please.
I'm wondering kind of if it's blowing up so much because so many girls nowadays feel like they're a Mary and they're like, I want my moment in the sun.
I mean, maybe, but it's just it's kind of funny. I worried a bit because like Bridgerton is doing like numbers and the fourth season I think turned I think a lot of people really didn't like the third season. I didn't watch it. I watched like the first two. I've watched most of Bridgerton. And mainly is like I don't want to say brain rot, but it's a bit of brain rot for me. And I watched the first 2, 3 episodes of the 3rd season, and I was like, "Nah, this is trash." And so I just skipped it, and I started the 4th season. And the thing is, like, I've come to realize I don't want sex in my period dramas. At like, not the way Bridgerton does, like a tasteful fade to black, whatever the case is, people were having sex in the Regency era. But like, I don't want it. That's not what I'm here for when I go to Regency pieces or my historical British pieces, like dramas. That's not what I'm there for. And so, it's actually kind of nice that something and the thing is, if we haven't seen the show might have, spiced things up a little bit. I hope not. I don't think so. I would like to believe not. But, like, the book for Austen standards, the book is salacious at the end. There's,
Oh
like,
yes.
3
Oh my
there's, like,
god.
3 whole unwedded kisses that happen. Yikes,
The first time I was like,
Oh,
in my Jane Austen? But then
exactly.
I was like, okay, this is essentially a very, very nice fanfic. So
Yes.
I'll accept it. I'll take it.
We'll accept it. Exactly. And so, like, for me, I was already like, oh, and so I mean, we'll see. But and so I kind of like the idea of something that is a little bit more of my speed of like the kind of period piece that I like doing well. So fingers crossed for that, guys.
Hmm.
And for those of you who don't know, who love the 1995 BBC Pride and Prejudice as much as Elin and I, the original Mary is playing Mrs. Hill in the new version, which I think is super cute because
So
Mrs.
cute.
Hill is the Mary Stan of the book, and so that is super sweet, and I kind of love that. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, what did you think of this? Oh, actually, before we get started, we go into our opinions. Elon, what's the premise?
I think you could say that Pride and Prejudice, a delightful novel as it is, leaves it rather open as to what happens to Mr. and Mrs. Bennet and Mary Bennet after Lizzie has had her happily ever after. So, what this book is doing is that it's basically saying, okay, so what of Mary? What did she go on to do with her life? And what happened after Pride and Prejudice ended. So the first third or so of the book is just kind of a quick run through of the plot of Pride and Prejudice, but we are entirely with Mary, and we see all of these events transpire from Mary's point of view, and then we go on to see what where life takes Mary afterwards. And it's a very delightful little journey.
It is a delightful little journey. I enjoyed this quite a bit. I will say that while I think the author does a good job of, kind of matching the narration, the witticisms of the era and like those kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
what this story is very much an earnest story focusing on Mary. And one of the things about Austen that I love about the books is, on top of, having its main character and whatever the romance that is, kind of cutting through, um Austen is also very much interested in like the social weirdness of humans. Her books are kind of hysterical in a lot of ways with how she focuses on other characters, specifically like the absurdities of humanity. I always think of the opening of Persuasion, which I have said I find one of her most earnest. I would say like Persuasion and Sense and Sensibility are like two of the most earnest of them, as far as getting really close to like the character's feelings and the characters not being too silly, or like having like all the lessons to learn. And yeah, Persuasion opens with a dude who's like, God, I'm so hot. I love looking at myself, and all my personal sitting room has like 900 mirrors, and also my favorite thing to read is my family lineage. I'll read it every day over and over. That's what I think's a good time. And it's this just like absurd rich guy. And like that's how this book, about what you could say is the most genuine romance, as far as, cuz like Austen loves presenting characters like falling for each other, but then loves being like, and then everything happened off screen.
Mm-hmm.
And Persuasion is the one where it's like we get a whole ass love confession in a letter, and it's like one of the most beautiful things you will ever read. But that's how that book fucking opens, with that. And so Austen has this like power to like get you emotionally invested in characters, but also to be like, do you see that guy over there being real fucking weird? Look at that little weirdo. And it's that like social commentary and the like acknowledgement of kind of like the absurdity of the way people present themselves, that is kind of missing out
Mm-hmm.
of Hadlow's recreation, which is fine. Hadlow wanted to write a story about Mary, and like where Mary is very important, and so
Yeah.
the social commentary is less of what's happening. I think the way you described it, Elin, is as a like pretty good fan fiction,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of spot on. Like the Hadlow had a goal, and by golly, she did it.
Yeah. I feel like with Mr. Ryder, she has a little bit of an attempt at showing the kind of fripperies that Austen so delights in, but
Mhm.
she, as an author, just doesn't quite have that innate amusement of people. So it's more like a sedate version of it, and it's I would say it satisfies, but you won't come to this novel and enjoy this novel for the same reason you would enjoy Jane Austen's work.
Austen, exactly. And I think you're so a writer is a perfect example of the difference. Like honestly, bravo, because now I that like triggered something. Writer is the like second love interest. The one that the character is like, and this love interest. Austen throws them around. They're the one who's like, oh, I'm good looking and charming, and I'm here. And writer is, you're completely correct, supposed to be a bit absurd and catching that, but also is a little too earnest. Like he ends up
Mm-hmm.
being like a decent guy in a
Yeah.
way, and genuine, like, he's just genuinely a little weirdo and, like,
Mhm.
kind of out of place for his time, and it makes it where, like, where I think Austen would have been, like, a little bit more sharp and acerbic in the depiction of Ryder. Hadlow is, I don't wanna say kinder, but it feels kinder
She
to Ryder.
feels like she, from the beginning, went in with the attitude of, like, she doesn't hide her cards. So she
Mhm.
shows him rather early, and she shows that, he is not perfect, but he's gonna turn out to be all right.
Yeah.
In my notes, I actually described him as a Dionysian romantic. So he's like rather a romantic creature, and he's a little short-sighted, and he's a little, in his feelings. He likes to experience life. He's a true romantic in that sense.
Mhm.
But and I would say Hadlow does this thing where she kind of tells us that he feels things very quickly, but maybe not very earnestly. But it's all very, very nice. Like,
Yeah, you're completely correct. Like, there was no point where I was like, "Ryder's a shitty human," because like that's the line. Uh, Austen walks beautifully. Of she'll present you a character, and you're like, eh? Like, this could go either way. And I kind of
mm-hmm,
like from the beginning, and part of it is not just how she writes Ryder, but just like the story as a whole. Um, Even a character we don't like that she doesn't write well. I find she still is a little like Miss Bingley. I find like she still like is giving some uh not props but like a little generosity to even though she's obviously like the worst character besides Mrs. Bennet.
mm-hmm,
Um and so I would say like the book is very earnest, and it also, god, it's crazy. There was the point at which at the end of the story in most Austen novels, like the characters kind of finally get together off screen. In Pride and Prejudice, it's like, and then Lizzie said yes, and then they were married. And like it's
mm-hmm.
you get the earlier confession of love that happens in the middle of the book where Lizzie was like, "You're the last guy I would ever want to marry, you son of a bitch." But like the actual romance is often like a paragraph in summary. Again, that's what makes Persuasion kind of so shocking, is like the thing happens. Um and there was this point at the end of the book where like the thing is happening on scene, and it like almost goes on for too long. And I'm like, this is because like it was in that moment at the end of the book when I'm watching the two characters and the thing is happening, and I'm like, oh, at this point the Austen novel would have been over. Like we would have
Oh,
been
yes.
done. We would never have seen the scene.
I had the little moment where Mary sort of stands up and says, "This is highly unusual, but I shall give you a piece of my mind, crude or not." And I almost felt like I was ready for it to fade to black right after she was done talking.
Yeah. No, 100%. It was just crazy that we get, like, all of the answers in scene, and, like, that's just not the way that normally works. It'll be, like, it'll fade to black, and it'll be like, "And then he explained everything to her, and then she understood kind of what was happening, and,
Mm-hmm.
they both kind of," but we get, like, the whole ass scene, and it was in that moment where I was like, "Oh god, you're really smacked," because there's something deliciously artful in the way Austen ends her novels, where she doesn't give you that, and you're given this, like postage stamp summary
Yeah.
of what happened
Hmm.
without the ends.
She pulls back the narrative because, in essence, she is a omniscient narrator more,
Mhm.
whereas here we kind of stay in with Mary all the way to the end, and it's almost a little bit too much. Sometimes by withholding a little bit, you can like make it taste sweeter.
Yes, there's that, like, yearning that you get out of the end of a, Austen novel that is just so delicious,
Hmm.
that you don't like, that I realized, oh, by, like, tying things up this neatly, you kind of miss some of that, and it was really that kind of ending, and, unfortunately, we are gonna, I'm sure, make a lot of comparisons to Austen's work because it is a reimagining of her characters, like, actively. It's fan fiction that has gotten to the point where, you're allowed to publish and make money off of the original story because it's been so much time. Um,
Yeah. it, in a way, it reminded me of Wolf Hall, in that Wolf Hall is
Ah.
almost like fan fiction about
Mhm.
Henry VIII, and this is kind of like fan fiction of Mary Bennet.
Yeah.
Um, and like fan fiction, sometimes it the purpose of it is just to be with the characters. It doesn't always focus that much on plot progression or um, character arcs and such in the way that a traditional novel does. And I think that is what we see towards the end, where we get a full on premarital kiss. And my I was so into the book by that time that my physical response was, "Oh my god, can they do that?
Do that?
What is
Guys!
this? Is this a brothel?" Kind of. I was outraged.
You are a little it's crazy because besides that moment, the book is so conscious of the expectations of the time period and in the way where like the Austen books are as well, where it's all yearning and like there's multiple points where Mary's like she wanted to hold his hand, but that would be scandalous. And I was like
Mhm.
and like there's this point where he touched her hair and I was like, "Oh my god, he's touching her hair." And then they kissed and I was like, "That's almost a step too far."
Yeah.
I wasn't
What?
ready, guys.
Yeah. I was like, my god. I just came from. Are we even gonna get a happy ending? Kind
Yeah.
of. Suddenly, it was way too happy, much happiness at once.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe you should marry first.
Yeah. Guys, there's a correct order to do these things in. Um,
Which is so ridiculous in today's context. But
it is.
that is one of the rules you just accept when something is set in Regency England.
Yeah, and it's the mode. It's like the unspoken rules. So it was a little shocking, but I would say overall I had a good time. I found it easy to read. I went back I mean, so much so that despite the fact that it is one of the longer books we've read recently, I think it was like 18 and a half hours. I finished it
Yeah.
Thursday night, which is super early for me. And it's cuz I was enjoying reading it and getting through it and kind of
Hmm.
experiencing it. Um I don't think it's perfect. Will, who did not read this book, by the way, he just got feedback from Elin about it, made the comment, and this is probably coming from you, that he wished it explored.
Hmm.
Anyway, now that we've talked about pollinators and lizards, back to the book.
Back to the book.
I just found it really easy to read. It was an easy thing to get through. If you have opened an Austen novel and you've thought, wow, the pace of this is too slow for me, then the pace of this is also going to be too slow for you.
Hmm.
Like the odds of you picking this up and being like, wow, great time, are probably going to be a little bit lower. Like I said, it's not doing what an Austen novel does, but it's written in that same mode, like a fan fiction. And it was a good time. I liked, oh no, we were talking about the, Will made the complaint, which I assume was coming from you, Elin, because he didn't read the book, that he wished it had gone into Lydia and Kitty more.
That is actually an opinion I heard. I read a review after I finished
Mhm.
this,
Ooh.
and that reviewer too mentioned that especially Kitty barely got an appearance in the book. And one thing I did think reading the book was that um, Jane and Lizzie had their little sisterhood, and as the two oldest, but also the kind of favored daughters,
Mhm.
they were a little inaccessible to Mary. But it would have been interesting if Kitty and
Lydia.
Lydia were if they're I felt like the reason why Mary was so isolated from her younger sisters could have been more organically developed. um sometimes, especially in the beginning. After a while, as Mary grew older, I kind of forgot about this criticism. But right as I began the book, I was like, why are all the women so terrible to Mary? And I wish there had been more like a kind of a falling out between her and her younger sisters, or
Sisters, yeah.
more than them just kind of sensing that Mary was the ugly duckling and them isolating themselves from her.
Yeah, and so honestly, that I agree with more so than what Will was saying, where he was saying he wished it had kind of like explored more of, and I was getting the sense that he wanted to explore like kind of the aftermath of Pride and Prejudice for Lydia and Kitty, which I have no interest
Oh.
in. I honestly fuck Lydia. Young Maria, who originally watched the BBC version and then read the Pride and Prejudice, was like, fuck Lydia. That girl threw her family into absolute uproar, and at the end of it was like, "Hoo, hoo, hoo, I was right all along.
Oh
I get a handsome
yeah.
husband." I No, get the fuck out, Lydia.
Mhm.
And the thing is, the book could have been like, and Lydia was actually sad and that she had done that, but she had just pretended, and there was that. But like, I don't give a shit about Lydia. Kitty, I absolutely could have. But your critique about the when they were children and kind of that separating, love that. And part of that could just be that having it be something where like Mrs. Bennet like spent so much time with Lydia when she was a kid that Mary was unable, like those kinds of
Mhm.
things. I think you're
Yeah.
completely correct. That could have used some work, but I had, as far as once they were adults, I had no interest in going to visit Mrs. Wickham. And
No. At some point, Will asked me if I thought that Lydia and Wickham were gonna kind of show up, and there was gonna be some kind of reconciliation or just some appearance and some kind of backstory as to what she was doing now. But that never happens, and honestly, I could not care less.
yep,
Because
the
this was
author
singularly Mary's story, and I wasn't that interested in hearing about the other sisters. Like the two older sisters, we know what happened to them, and Lydia was never a very nice sister.
no.
I could have had more Kitty. I could have had. It
Yes.
would have been kind of cute if Mary and Kitty had a sort of sistership, and then something happened, and that kind of drove a wedge between them. I also remember thinking that I wish some of Mary's alienations from her sister could have come as much from Mary feeling awkward, and in that way, sort of creating a distance between her emotionally and her sisters. Because at times I thought it felt a little too antagonistic from the sisters' side.
Side, yeah. And
Mm.
the thing is, the author does try that angle, but she tells it to us more than shows it to us, which I
Hmm.
think it happens in the beginning and then doesn't get mentioned a lot. Like suddenly and we'll get into it as we go into the plot. And honestly, at 32 minutes into this recording, we probably should. Um
Yeah.
um but yeah, overall, good read. I enjoyed this. It was nice. I told Will I was happy to have a nice little book to read. It was a good time.
I'm a little sorry because not to expose anyone now, but our patron who recommended it to us had some qualms with the start of the story,
Ooh.
and they were like, "Oh, could you look into this?" And I was like, "Okay, that could be interesting because we have Maria, our Austin girly, very acknowledged, and the podcast has covered Awesome before, so this would be like in the canon, sort of speaking."
Mhm.
So I actually told Will that I'm not sure you're going to enjoy this one because he was intending to read it. And I was like, maybe you're not going to enjoy it. And we all know how angry you can get sometimes if you don't enjoy a book. So it's my fault. It's my fault he didn't read it. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. But wait, what were the qualms that the patron had about the beginning of the book?
I think it was the relations maybe specifically between Mrs. Bennet and how mean she can be. Um, and I also think they weren't a fan of how Hadlow tries to emulate Jane Austen's way of writing, which I honestly had no issue with at all.
None. I thought it was pretty well done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and listen, the beginning of the book is a little bit of a "Oh, poor Mary" time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're right. I think Will would have been like, "Fuck it, I hate Mary because the author wants me to not hate Mary, and because everybody else, you know." So I think you're right. I think it would have been, we would have been battling that uphill a little bit.
Quite possibly. But I could also see how Will would really enjoy bits of this.
Yes. Honestly, I think he, especially with how much he enjoyed Persuasion, I think there's parts of it he would have enjoyed. And it's so funny. I don't know why I had thought before that he was like listening to it with you. Who knows? Um but yeah, overall a good time. If you not need a nice little, it's spring, you want a nice little spring read to read in a field of flowers as the sun goes down with
Mm,
dappled light coming through the leaves, read this book.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Does
All right,
Regency Slice of Life sound like a good time to you? Go read it.
I'll read it. Does a book where a kiss at the end between two people who have professed they love each other and that they plan to get married, but they are currently unmarried, sound scandalous? You should read this book. It's gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
great time.
Agree.
um. Okay, Elin, open the book for us. What happens?
Oh God. When you said that, I completely blanked. I do not remember what happened.
Nothing. Nothing happened.
He was
There is
something about a
zero.
girl who was somewhere in England.
She was somewhere in England.
Mhm.
So far, accuracy 100%, Ela. You're knocking it out of the park.
Well, I seem to recall that the beginning is something like Mary wasn't quite sure how old she was when she realized that she wasn't pretty.
That's exactly how it opens, baby. That's exactly it. Yes, this book opens with a young little girl, or Mary, recollecting back on her history. And like, listen, the first three chapters, pure exposition. There's not even a lot of like in scene moments. So like, if that's not, and that's a something that happens in Austen novels sometimes, where it's just like Austen is just going to talk to you, but more so in this than a typical Austen novel.
Mm.
Um, and it's just telling you kind of Mary's evolution of understanding that she was the ugly duckling of her family, and how, like, as a young girl before this revelation, she was actually quite close to her two older sisters, Jane and Elizabeth.
And she was
Uh
rather happy as well.
Yes, she was a happy little girl. But her mother was very open with how she thought Mary was quite plain. And eventually, once Mary was kind of like old enough to like hear these things, she overhears a conversation. I think it's between her mother and her aunt, basically saying,
Mm.
"Sucks that my middle child's kind of ugly, though, doesn't it?" And young Mary
Mm-hmm.
was like, "Oh shit, I'm ugly," and thus begins young Mary's staring into mirrors, analyzing her face like, what's different?
Mary's melancholy. MM. With
There's a lot of MM
yeah,
in this book.
melancholy being capitalized. It's
Yes,
capital melancholy.
yes.
Uh, which is exasperated by and it the book in the book Mary kind of makes this and her entire personality for a long while.
Yep,
Like
she
she
really
she
does.
takes this so much to heart. She's like, I have no friends. Everyone hates me because I'm not pretty.
To the point where she like alienates her sisters because like they'll
Hmm.
be like, let's go play, and she'll be like, you can't play with me, I'm ugly. And so her
Yeah,
sisters eventually just like stop asking,
yeah.
but there's only so many times where you can be like, Mary, let's take a turn about the room, and Mary's like, leave me, I'm a monster. And before you're
Hmm.
just like,
And the
okay,
first
Mary.
days, the first day, the sisters are like, they don't even ask her to go with them because they know she'll say no. She's like, and finally, my sisters had abandoned me. The poor ugly girl. who had no friends. But I did like we get to learn that Mary likes to play the piano, and she and Lizzie are the only two sisters that actually stick with the piano. The other sisters sort of abandon it as they grow older. But Lizzie and Mary stay. And Lizzie and Mary are at this point in time very different people. Like Lizzie has this quirky, sharp witted sort of levity about her. She does not care to be the best at everything. She cares to enjoy things and to be herself and to kind of revel in being herself. Whereas Mary's like, by this time, she thinks that being good at something is my only claim to legitimacy I can ever have.
I'm ugly. Might as well be good at something, and then maybe
Hmm.
then someone will see value in me.
Yeah, and she and Lizzie actually had this really interesting conversation where they sort of talk on, because Mary says like, "Oh, if you don't stick with it, if you don't learn the basics, how are you ever going to get great, Lizzie?" And Lizzie says something along the lines of, "Don't you think that by taking something and practicing it to death, you will take the joy out of it?" And Mary argues outwardly against this, but internally she's like, but inside she wondered if maybe Lizzie wasn't right.
Yes. And it turns out Lizzie is right. By
Hmm.
trying to make piano playing her value, she saps all of the enjoyment out of it. She loved it when she was young, and as she gets older, it becomes this thing that she like has to do and she no longer enjoys doing even though she's gotten good. And there's this idea in the book that comes from Pride and Prejudice, where while Lizzie is not like the best player, her enjoyment, even when she makes mistakes, is so palpable that it
Hmm.
gives her playing life, verve. You can't help but stop and
Hmm.
watch Lizzie play. Can I say, it was in this book that I was getting a little bit of Lizzie is a manic pixie dream girl.
Yes. I got that at times, and
There's
if
a
the
couple.
book wasn't so kind of delightful, that would have been one of those things that would have made me really
Yeah.
pivot against it, because it was something that bothered me. I was like, this Lizzie is a little too flippant about how much she delights in herself at times. I don't recall her being that quite in your face about it, but
Yeah. And part of it is that it can be one of those things because for the most part, a lot of the dialogue that was in the original book is very much the same, but there's a lot of internal life to Lizzie that you don't get when you're reading it as a third person. And like, there's just like
mhm,
her like, I don't care if make mistakes on the piano, like, and the I don't care if my hum gets muddy, and like, there's just all these moments, and you're just and like in from when you're in Lizzie's point of view, she's like, my sister's sick, I gotta go, and screw it. And but from the outside, you're just like, you're so quirky. Anyway, and you're right though, but and the thing is the book doesn't dislike Lizzie, which helps it from being something that would be a problem.
mhm.
Um but it is just something that a couple points it like rang out to me cuz like Lizzie feels not like other cuz like it's so funny cuz like Jane is like what other girls wish they were like.
She is other
Lizzie's not.
girls.
Yeah. But she's also what other girls wish they were. Like
Mhm,
Jane kind of like is effortlessly that thing. Lizzie is
mhm.
not like other girls, and then Mary's really not like other girls, and it's
Yeah.
just so funny that like the these different tropes because all three of them are eventually like great, like good characters. The book is not making judgments on any of them. Jane is not sold to us as vapid and terrible because she is the ideal. Lizzie, as much as there are those moments where she reads a bit like the manic pixie dream girl, is sold to us as a good person. Uh Not so the same for Lydia in this. As our girl Mary kind of gets older and kind of like falls into her fate, the other thing that she starts doing is she realizes that if she reads and studies, maybe she can also like she can find value in her brain. And the thing is,
Mhm.
there are a lot of and I'm just going to say this as someone who was, I'm sure there are a lot of girls who were growing up as kids, not the most conventionally attractive, or thought they weren't, that did this kind of thing where they were like, okay, if I'm not pretty, I'm going to be A, B, or C. And I say this as someone who grew up as a chubby, hairy Greek girl in Florida with a lot of very pretty hairless other kids around her who were not as chubby as she was. And so I, as a young girl, I remember being like, uh, I read and I'm like smart and I can like that can be my thing. I was the kid in class whose hand was always up, who was always uh had the answer. I read like when other kids would go do recess, I would
Oh.
draw or read. Like
Mhm.
that was like I and for a lot of in a lot of ways I isolated myself from like friendships because of it. And ended up making friends like despite that. So like it's always worse in your head than you think it is,
Oh,
but
yes.
I very much was a Mary growing like for no reason. If you look back at photos of cute Marie, and listen, other kids were mean. I got a lot of, like I was a bit bullied, but like I look back at photos of young Marie and I'm like, look at that adorable son of a bitch,
Oh,
Look
you're
how
so
cute she
delightful.
was. Look at that cutie patootie. I mean, listen, when
Mhm.
I turned like 11, 13, shit got awkward. Even
Mm.
now I look back at those photos and I was like, yeah, girl, it was a rough time. But
Around
like
that
young,
age,
little
I was about twice the height as of everyone I knew, and it was so awkward. My god.
yeah. The awkward stage, it hits awkward, but like young little Maria, I was just like chubby, with big eyes. And a little hairy. Did I have to start shaving my legs much younger than most girls? Yes. Did I have to start getting my upper lip waxed and my eyebrow ununibrowed in elementary school? You betcha.
I
You
will tell
betcha.
you this, I would kill to have that problem instead of I'm Nordic. I have absolutely no hair
No.
anywhere. I barely have eyebrows. I'll dye my eyebrows black, like stark black, and it'll be like, yeah, yeah, there's a little there. So these of it's pomade, bitches. They don't exist.
And that's the thing is as I got older, I was like, "Look at those," because like, and it was nice because like, when I was young, thin eyebrows were the thing, so
Hmm.
my big but as I got older and we got into, like, the big eyebrows, I was like, "Hot damn, I
Yeah.
don't need as long as you just,
Oh,
like, pluck
I would have
around,
murdered for those big eyebrows. They're so
this is
gorgeous.
this is how they come." Now the con is they grow up my forehead. So if you see here, I have hairs coming down.
Hmm.
These guys and these guys will meet if left unattended. This is curated. This is and they will grow down. Like I have hairs that start here, guys. So like yeah, there's like welcome to the two spectrums of eyebrow.
Yeah, and welcome to the impossibility of being a girl. It's like no matter what you
What
have,
you
you're like,
do?
oh my god, I'm a monster. I wish I was that one.
Exactly. And then like another thing that this book talks about is like having like limp Mary has like the style at the time was hair would be up often and you would have these very kind of tight ringlets
Hmm.
that they you would kind of arrange. If you want to see really well done versions of Regency hair, the 2020 or 2021 Emma, beautiful Regency hair, great job with that. And I from what I've seen, I don't remember the hairstyles in the Other Bennett Sister, but anyway, so it's like having ringlets, but like this hair don't curl. What are you talking about? I tried for my wedding to get my hair to curl, and if you
Oh,
see photos, that shit's straight.
few things are as dispiriting as trying really, really hard to get gorgeous curls, and in the end, you're like, I just wasted a couple of hours.
Exactly! That's exactly what happened. Um, and you kind of just at a certain point have to embrace it, but Mary suffers with her mother trying to constantly curl her hair and make her into something that she can't be, and, like, there's always in whatever era you're in, there's going to be parts of, like, the fashionable thing that you can't do. One nice thing about a lot of historical clothing is that kind of regardless of your figure, a little less uh so for Regency specifically, but like a lot of times you could like make your figure using padding, corsets. You could shape your body to look correct for the
Mhm.
fashionable silhouette at the time. Regency was kind of easy. You literally just had like a like bust here, like
Mhm.
your waistline here,
Imagine
and
imagine a Greek pillar.
yeah. And that's about it. But and so but for Mary, she can't get her hair to do the thing. And plain face, and then as she begins her studying and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to study so hard and read all the time." And she's like, "I'm not like other girls. I'm not going to read novels. I want to
Mhm.
challenge myself." She enjoys reading, but she's like, "I need to cultivate my mind." And so she asks to go into her father's library, a place that she can't actually, because she wanted a governess, and her mother is like, "Absolutely not. No higher learning for my girls, ma'am." Um, and so she goes to her father's library and starts reading from there. But oh no, what's this? The words start getting real hard to read, especially
Oh.
those small texts. And so she's
Mhm.
struggling and like straining, and then eventually gets to the point where she has to ask to see the eye doctor, and she gets glasses, which her mother hates.
Yeah, she's like, no one but old men wear spectacles. You will look like an old maid before your time.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
so embarrassing.
yeah, and her mother especially, like, she really hammers down the nail by saying, and you didn't have much to begin with, Mary.
Yeah, it's like Mrs. Bennet is really like, this is the part of the book where like Mary's getting hammered a little bit. So not only
Mm.
the majority of it is coming from her mother. Again, she self-isolates from Mary and Jane, and again when they finally stop trying to get her to play with them, she takes that as like the uh oh, is that a Catito?
Can you hear him? It's
Yeah.
my parents' old cat Sheldon. He
Oh.
comes and he tells me he wants dreamies, which are treats.
Oh, he's so cute. I heard
Well,
that's sad.
Will,
Yeah. What?
could you give Sheldon some dreamies?
Yeah. Come on, buddy.
Such a
Yeah.
cutie.
Yeah.
Um, but and Mrs. Bennet is constantly like, "Ugh, what could we do with Mary?" And then her sisters, and the idea that is kind of told to us is that Lydia is very much Mrs. Bennet's child. She's kind of the apple has not fallen far from that tree. She is everything Miss Bennet wants, a loud, wanting all the things, and opinionated. And Lydia's also just a bitch, and is
Mhm.
very mean to Mary. And this is the point that Elon was making earlier, where it would have been really nice to see, like, maybe a specific reason that caused the falling out between these two. The unsaid but inferable reason is that Lydia parrots what her mother says, but it would have been nice to have an explicit scene of kind of watching that, or an acknowledgement of it, or maybe Lydia trying to get close to Jane and Mary, and then or Jane and Elizabeth, and then Mary trying, and then like something happening, and that like
Mhm.
forcing it farther.
Yeah,
Because
or
there's a
if we
point.
would see Mrs. Bennet sort of kind of rewarding Lydia for trying to
Yes.
enact Mary to show proper behavior and not make a fool out of herself, because that is one thing she's constantly on Mary about, because everyone treats Mary as if she's a little, the country bumpkin, sort of. Like,
Yes.
she doesn't understand the rules of society. And Lydia just entirely takes it upon herself to sort of police her sister and what she's doing. And there is one scene at a party where Lydia sort of does this, and it turns out that Mrs. Bennet does agree. She thinks it was a good thing, but we don't actually see them interact where we get a
Yes.
direct blow to blow, where we see how Mrs. Bennet's endorsing of this behavior is part of how Lydia became such a
A
nightmare sister.
hundred. 100%. And I mean, also, like maybe Lydia was keeping up with the piano and would play with Mary, and then Mrs. Bennet's like, no,
Hmm.
don't, like, or don't be like Mary, like that kind of stuff that can kind of show that. Lydia is unfortunately just shown to be like, she was born this way, kind of
Hmm.
thing.
Kind of a
Um,
bitch.
Yeah. And Kitty, Mary tries to get close to Kitty, or Mary fantasizes about being closer to Kitty, but Kitty's so close to Lydia that there's kind of no space for that.
Hmm.
But anyway, Mary gets glasses, and
To her
the
mother's
doctor,
chagrin.
complete chagrin, the doctor that comes over is Dr. Sparrow, and he brings his son, John Sparrow, who helps with the spectacles and like figuring out what prescription she needs. And John Sparrow's a really nice guy.
Hmm.
And he's actually like there was a point where when she could see, like there's a point where she takes off her glasses 'cause she's like, oh, they make me look terrible. And she was like, he's like, no, actually you looked really great. Like when you first put them on, you were smiling and you looked great. And you kind of get and it's kind of hysterical that it's the opposite of the normal. Like she put her glasses on and was really happy, and a
Oh,
guy was
yeah.
like, wow,
Hmm.
look how look how nice she looks when she smiles, and it's because she
Hmm.
put the glasses on. I don't know if that was intentional on Hadlow's point, but it is kind of funny.
I feel like it must be.
It had
It's
to
a
be.
little too much on the nose for her not to have entirely. But
Uh,
it was really cute. It was
it
so
is really
gratifying.
cute, and immediately you're like, I like this Sparrow kid. He's nice, but also what's happening in the background is we're getting scenes from actual Pride and Prejudice, but from Mary's point of view. So there's like this point where Mary wants a, well, no, I think Dr. Forsyth happens after yeah, it happens after the first Meriton Ball. So there's a Meriton Ball that is going to happen, and originally our girl Mary's not going to go, but then she decides, and Mrs. Hill is like, you know what, you should go. I will take you to the dressmaker. We'll get you a nice new dress. You should go and experience these things. And Mary's like, you know what? Maybe I should. Maybe I should go out and learn to do these things. And
Mhm.
it would be, and she's like, at first she's like, I don't need a new dress. And Mrs. Hill is like, maybe you should have a new dress.
I kind
And
of do.
she's like, maybe I'll blend in better, because she doesn't want to stand out. She doesn't want to bring attention to herself. But if she showed up in her normal, because like Mary wears like gray potato sack dresses,
Yeah, she
like,
wears drab clothing.
yeah.
She's the girl who doesn't want to be noticed, and she wears it like an armor.
Yes.
And
And but in such a way that she becomes very noticeable for how
mhm.
out of place, like she is so unfashionable that it makes her noticeable. Where if she just like, and there's going to be a whole conversation about this later. If you just like, keep up, you're the odds of it being that negative are really low. But she goes, she gets a nice dress, and she loves this dress. It's plain, it's a pretty white, but it's the right color for her skin tone, and it's got little tiny gold threads going through, so just a little hint of ornament. No frills, no
Mhm.
poof, no ornamentation, simple, nice, like our girl Mary. um and she goes, and like her family's like, oh, Mary, finally you put effort into looking good, like, and also Mrs. Hill does her hair in a way that isn't, it's a hairstyle that's not dependent on curls. So instead of trying to force her very very straight hair to do something it shouldn't do, she helps her find a style that is suitable to her hair. So basically trying to dress for herself and her
Mm-hmm.
body and her features. And she goes to the party, and she's at first a little awkward, but her sisters were like, "Oh, sit over here with us." And it's at this table kind of where you have a good view of everything, but then her sisters immediately disappear. And then Charlotte Lucas comes and ends up talking with Mary a little bit. And Charlotte Lucas and Mary have something in common. They are not the most naturally appealing women for the time period.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
And Charlotte Lucas is a couple of years older than Mary. I don't remember how much older.
I think she's like 25,
Mm-hmm.
because I think in the next year she's gonna be 26 when everything goes down with
Yeah.
Mr.
So
Collins.
in a sense, she's like for Mary, she's like a little look into the future, and you can tell that Charlotte sort of sees herself in Mary as well.
Yes. And they kind of have conversations about it where Charlotte's like, "Ah, yes, the only people that are gonna ask me to dance are, like, my cousin and then maybe, like, someone else out of politeness." And Mary's, kind of seeing this, but then, Mary is delighted because she's like, "If I can just dance with one person, if, like, one person asks me to dance,
Mm-hmm.
that would make me happy," you know? Because as much as she doesn't care about, like, the frivolity of dancing, she does want to experience this thing. Like,
Yeah, and she feels kind of left out and sort of like as if people are pointing at her by not asking her to dance.
yes. And a young guy comes up, and it's Charlotte Lucas's 16-year-old cousin who's come to visit, and he asks her to dance, and they have, a perfectly good time. They both acquit themselves well. Nobody is embarrassing. She goes back to sit, and then she at one point she's straining because she brought her glasses, but she doesn't want to put them on again because her mother
Yeah,
tells her
because her
she's an
mother
ugly
would
old
be
maid.
relentless if she wore her
Yes.
glasses to a party.
So she's sitting there and she's like trying to find Lizzie. And so she's squinting. She's like, I think Lizzie's over there. And then all of a sudden she hears a voice being like, you really shouldn't strain your eyes
Mhm.
like that. And who should it be but John Sparrow, the Oculus
Ooh.
guy's son? And he's like, do you not do you? And she's like, oh, I'm trying to find my sister. And he was like, okay, well, and he's like, yep, your sister is over there. And then he's like, you know what? You want to step out with me? You want to dance with me? And she's like, I'd love to. And they have a great time.
Yeah, and they start chit-chatting a little. They're both
Mhm.
kind of bookish, and he is very openly very he kind of delights in her personality, and he gives her very subtle compliments, and he clearly likes the person that Mary is, and she kind of feels the same.
Yep.
So they have these delightful little exchanges, and she gets happier and happier,
Yes.
and they dance once, and then he asks her to dance again, and she gladly accepts.
And like without because the first time she's like a little taken aback, and so but the second time
Hmm.
without hesitation she says yes, and they have a grand time, like that breathless. And I will say Hadlow does a good job describing this feeling, that like kind of like breathless giddiness you have when like, and
Hmm.
it's kind of become effortless, and he's going to become a doctor, and he loves to study, and he asks about the stuff she reads, and he's interested, and it's like it's
Yeah.
great. It's everything Mary dreamt and more. But also
Hmm.
like she's not thinking too much into it outside of, wow, I'm having a great time.
Yeah, it's very much she didn't expect by that time before he showed up. She wasn't expecting to have a very good time, and then he shows up, and it's like she's given this beautiful gift of a lovely moment, and she doesn't think too much about what it means.
Exactly. And it's but he's like, you know what, I'm gonna go get us some drinks. You look warm. Let me go get us something cool to drink. So he goes off, and Charlotte Lucas, because I should say, at one point while dancing, Lydia sees Mary up dancing and is trying to figure out who her partner is, and it's like, what the
Hmm.
hell's going on? Um and so she's sitting there, and Charlotte Lucas comes up and is like, hey, so I saw you dancing with that Sparrow kid. Having a good
Hmm.
time, are we? And basically, Charlotte hits her with the firm and sad reality that like he's a shopkeeper. Like his
Hmm.
father is an eye doctor, but like he's not a doctor. Like
They're
it's a different term.
merchants.
They're merchants. He has a shop with a bell, and
Hmm.
like Charlotte's basically like, "Listen, your mother's going to be very pissed. You cannot if you dance with him again, people are going it sets up an expectation." And she's like, "Why? We've only danced twice. What are you talking about? Like
But she's
nothing has
like, you
happened."
danced twice, and you got his hopes up enough that he went to fetch drinks for you.
Yes. And she's like, "Oh, shit." And like
Mm-hmm.
what oh, she's right. And so she ends up having to tell poor Sparrow like I can't dance with you
Mm.
anymore, because he comes back and he's got the drinks and he's like, "You wanna go again?" And she's like,
She
no."
very much does this. I've been informed that it would not be suitable, and I'm really
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, and she's trying to impart with him that she did genuinely have an
Mm-hmm.
awesome time, and she really enjoyed this, and the hurt on his face is so palpable, and she feels super shitty, and then her mom on the way home rails into her about it, and like,
Mm-hmm.
"How could you? He has a shop in town," and she's like, Your brother does, like, Mr. Gardner,
Mm-hmm.
that they're
Yeah, because
hardly the
she's
same
like,
thing."
they're poor, and it's like, no, they're merchants. They need not be poor. And she's like, but even so, we
They
are
have a
rich.
bell.
Yeah.
Yes. The fact that they have a storefront with a bell is just the
Mm-hmm.
greatest of insults.
They're
And
bad breeding. It's that time of England where the gentry are still considered to be almost a superior race of people. And nowadays we have these upstart merchants who have started to make money off of commerce. And the gentry notoriously saw it as a very shameful thing. Like it was
yes,
money, but it was shameful money. They were barely more than peasants.
yes. And which is crazy because Mrs. Bennet herself came from such a family. Like she's not part of the gentry. She married into it. And she is so dismissive because like you're allowed to marry up as a woman, but it would not be the done thing for a wealthy woman to marry a poorer guy. Like that
Mm-hmm.
would not, or not, and not even poorer, but like the kind of go down in that way. And so like Mrs. Bennet is just like lethal about it. And
Yeah,
Mary
and in the canon of this world, it makes a
makes
sense
sense.
because she is in a very precarious situation that she had no sons, and their estate that they're living in now is entailed to their cousin, so that her daughters are essentially without dowry, and their best chance at a good life is to marry up.
And so down is not really an option.
No,
Uh
and she also has these kind of blinkers where she thinks that up is preferably with wealth, but social status is like a main decider.
Cider. And also there's the worry that by going if Mary ended up with something lesser, it would mean her sisters would also be resigned to something lesser. That if Mary married the, you know, m- John Sparrow, it would ruin her sister's chances, that it would taint the family,
Mm-hmm.
which also was something
That
that did happen.
oh yes.
Um and so it comes across really um like a kind of a genuine interaction, like genuine in the sense that like I can see young Mary getting swept up, having a great time, realizing how this looks, how it affects things, having to do this thing, and
I
everybody's
can see a
reaction.
lot of people being taken because we know how people are. We fall in love, and it's not really an intellectual smart thing all the time. Like it must have happened back in the day too. I can see lots of girls being scolded by their mothers because they danced with the wrong boy.
Boy, exactly. And the other thing that happens is Mary feels terrible about it in the sense that she hates that Charlotte Lucas tells her this thing and she immediately just listened to Charlotte and didn't, and hurt John. And she puts all of the blame on herself that,
Mm-hmm.
had she been smarter, had she not let her emotions get away with her, she could have saved John the
Mm-hmm.
hurt of it. And so on one hand, she's mad at herself for letting Charlotte influence her so immediately, but also mad at herself for getting to the point that any of this happened. And so it's at this point that she's like, I need not just to sharpen my mind, but I need a moral guidance. I need a guidance for how to live as a woman. And this is where she finds Reverend Forsyth. Um, she basically goes to her dad's library and starts looking at like all the philosophy and like like the self-help equivalents
Yeah.
of like how to live a good life. And a lot of it she doesn't like, because a lot of them are like, women should be seen and not heard, and they should not read, and higher education's a no. And she's like, it's so funny because she wants a moral and like life guidance, but she also wants it to fit within what her understanding of what she likes is. And so all the
Yeah.
ones that were like, don't read, she was like, fuck these guys. So then she finds Reverend Forsyth, who's like, women should be learned. They should cultivate their minds, but also they shouldn't do all of this other stuff. And so she kind of like clings to Forsyth as this
Mm-hmm.
like molder. And there's also this like very sad interaction that happens where she spends a lot of time in her dad's library, and she wants desperately to like share what she's learning and doing and with her dad. Like there are times where Lizzie will come in, because like the rule in the library is you don't talk. You can come in, and as long as you don't say a freaking word and interrupt Mr. Bennet, you can be in there. But Lizzie is immune to that, where if she's, laughing at a book and, says, "Oh, I'm sorry for making a noise," her dad will be like, "What are you reading? What's happening?" And they'll have like a
Mm-hmm.
conversation
What
about it.
delights you so?
And Mary is like, I
Mary would kill to have that. Mary would kill to have one parent she could be close with. Like, it's, you can just feel her need to be seen and appreciated by her father. So she like begins to scheme and write long lists of reading materials to try to impress him. And it's just gut wrenching that the day they have a conversation about Forsyth, he is just like, ugh, that old.
yeah.
That old goat.
He's boring and dumb.
Yeah.
Equivalent. And she's been writing a book of excerpts, like a beautiful writing, beautifully different colors. She found a leather book that she bought to give to her father, to be like, look, I want to share this with you, thinking, because like her dad owns this book. She's like, he must like it. And
Mm-hmm.
she's found this thing she loves and she wants to share it. And he's like, Forsyth, that old bag.
Mm-hmm.
And she realizes this thing that she was doing this whole time to try connect with her father. An
Yeah.
absolute waste.
So terrible. He's like, he tells her that I doubt there's any good takeaway from Forsyth at all. And she's like, and it's
Oh,
both, it's like a double insult, because it's an insult to her idol and by extension to her. And all this work she has done, she just sees it fall apart, like burn before her eyes.
yeah.
And her father was already kind of like a fortress, an impeachable fortress on a hill in the distance. And as he is saying these things, you can just see how he recedes from Mary and how she begins to feel that maybe she will never have that moment with him.
Yes. And it is really sad. And then the other
Mm-hmm.
thing that happens that we see in Pride and Prejudice is Mary quotes Forsyth a lot to people. Like somebody will be saying something and she'll be like, Reverend Forsyth says, and then she says, and what she's trying to do is she's trying to connect with people and show that she's like learned and all of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. But it all she's like, I always just say the wrong thing. I'm always like, people are always just like, God, Mary, shut up. Like, and she's like, why can I never say the right thing? And it's because she doesn't know how to genuinely connect with people as herself. She always has to have a filter by
Mm-hmm.
which to say and speak through. And it makes it hard for people, especially because, like Elizabeth is very genuine. So the Forsyth thing, she's not about. Lydia just thinks it's hysterical and lame, you know? And so she's just constantly like the odd man out. During all of this, the Bingleys move into town. There's that whole thing. There's the second Meriton ball she goes to, and she just wears her normal dress and like sits in the corner, and all of the like the beginning of Pride and Prejudice is happening. Then Mr. Collins comes to town.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if you've read Pride and Prejudice or seen any of the adaptations, Mr. Collins is the absurd cousin of Mr. Bennet who is going to get the Longbourn estate, and he's the relative that the and an entail is a really weird. So in like this era of Britain and like a lot of different eras, you could have like if you only had a daughter, she would get the estate, like it would pass to her, and then her male offspring would be the next
Mm-hmm.
person to get it. Like that's how it would work. But if your estate was entailed, it meant it had to go to a male heir. And so it was this thing that
So
happened like
it would pass to whichever male was closest within
closest.
the bloodline,
Exactly.
or you know.
And so it was a really and it was something that happened like hundreds of years ago when the entail was put in place, and unfortunately was almost impossible to undo. But and so their land is entailed. Longbourn estate, the position Mr. Bennet has is under an entail. So he invites the originally the family member that it was entailed to was like a bit of a jag, but then that guy died, and that guy's son, Mr. Collins, is like, I would love to come and visit and
Mm-hmm.
introduce myself to your
Me
family.
repair this rift between us.
And and Mr. Bennet reads his letter, and he's like, I immediately said yes, because the letter is written in an absurd manner. Again, those of you who have seen this, Mr. Collins. He's
Mm-hmm.
absurd. He is so uh
He's so awkward.
yeah, and cloying. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
cloyingness to the way he writes, and he is constantly trying to ingratiate himself in really like off-putting ways, and he's a bit ridiculous. And Mary's like, well, I don't think we should just judge him on this piece of writing. Like, we don't know anything. And Mr. Bennet is so excited. He's like, I wanted a good time. This is it, babes. And Mr. Collins comes and is everything that
Mm-hmm.
everyone assumed. Everyone's like, wow, this guy's a
Every
fucking
bit as ridiculous,
ridiculous.
but
And Mary's
also kind of an opportunity in a way.
Yes. And at the second Meriton ball, which I kind of just blew past, but she has another conversation with Charlotte, and Charlotte is like, "Look, babes, we take whatever we can get. Us,
Mm-hmm.
we don't marry for love. We take the best match and we say yes. And as a woman in our position, sometimes we have to make it known that we would say, sometimes just letting a guy know that there would be a guaranteed yes might be enough to get us the proposal
Mm-hmm.
versus having to embarrass themselves. So, like, find whatever you can and grab on. And so this advice is in because, like, Charlotte's like, I'm making my bag, hun. And something that Will and I talked about in our persuasion video is marriage as not just this idyllic thing for love and stuff like that, but also as a woman in this time period, like this was how you established your future. This is how you got
Mm-hmm.
a house. This is how you got a life, being an old maid. And this book specifically talks about like the realities for unmarried women who were not wealthy enough to just be unmarried, because there
Yeah.
are like, if you're the eldest daughter, if you're a daughter for a man who has no sons, you might not need to get married if he's got enough
Yeah.
money to make that work
Or
for
like
you.
that Catherine de Bourgh that Mr. Collins is so enamored with. Like
Yeah.
she supposedly outlived her husband or something, but she
Yes.
does not need to remarry. She's a woman in her own right. She has
Own
the
right.
status and the wealth.
But most women don't have that. They don't have the
No.
status and the wealth to make unmarriage work, and it means becoming a governess, becoming a teacher, and living quite poorly or being constantly a burden to other people. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, marriage is not just like the thing that, like, in the romances, it's house hunting.
Yeah.
It's picking your life.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlotte's like, I'ma get mine, babe.
Yeah, she's like that. He can provide a perfectly good life. Nothing wrong with it. It might not be fanciful, it might not be something for the romantic, but it is good and it is practical. And girls like you and me, Mary, we have to be practical.
We take those practical opportunities when they present themselves. Because
Mm
Mary's like, "Don't you want love?" And Charlotte's like, "Bitch, not everyone gets love." And the thing is, Mary knows this. Mary's parents married for love, and because like when Mrs. Bennet was young, she was hot to trot, and thus Mr. Bennet uh was like, "Yeah, I'll marry this one," and then realized, "Oh no,
hmm.
she's an idiot and I don't like her,"
Mm
and he doesn't respect his wife at all, and it's a huge point of contention in their marriage that is very obvious to like there's
Yeah,
literally a point where
yeah.
Mary's like,
She fusses and he rolls his eyes,
yeah, and
pretty
there's
much.
no respect coming down that way, and it
No.
makes their household very isolated, uh, uh, as far as all these people from each other. And so Charlotte's presenting this very realistic and one that I'm like, yeah, babes, you make the best of it that you can.
Hmm.
As I think I've spoken before that like looking at historical situations for women and being like, but why did they have to get married or trying to like put a modern lens on it? I don't love. Nah, this is how we make our lives. This is how we
Hmm.
get our bags. Uh, marriage as house hunting, babes. Um, anyway, and so Mary kind of takes this to heart when Mr. Collins shows up because like he's obviously looking for a wife, and how
Hmm.
awesome would it be to keep Longbourn in the
Yes.
fam?
Hmm.
And you know he's kind of weird but he likes Reverend Forsyth and
Yes.
he is read like he did go to school, he is scholarly,
Mm.
and she's
A
like
little
he's absurd.
bookish.
Yeah, and he's a bit absurd and she's like maybe I can help him become less absurd, you know,
Hmm.
like maybe that could be. And so she goes to her mom and she's like, Mom, I know he's looking at the girls, and she was like, I think it should be of the Bennett sisters, I think I am the one m- most
Most
poised,
suitable.
most suitable to make this work. And Mrs. Bennet's like, ugh, how dare you? He's looking at Lizzie. And Mary's like, Lizzie? No
Hmm.
way on God's green earth. And she's like, well, obviously not Jane. Jane's going to marry Mr. Bingley.
Hmm.
And she's like, Lizzie's not gonna marry that guy. And Mrs. Bennet's like, I'll make Lizzie marry that guy. Because Mrs. Bennet completely unaware of the absurdity in Mr. Collins. She just sees dollar bills, y'all.
Yeah. Exactly.
And
She sees it
um
as a stuffed turkey ready for
ex-
basting.
exactly, and she's like, I will throw my daughter all over that turkey.
We must. And she's very determined to throw the most tasty daughter at him first. She's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
how can I entice him? Lizzie!
So Mary's like, okay, Lizzie's not going to take this guy. I need to make him see me. And so she's like, she one day is playing on the piano and she decides she ends up, you know, deciding to play a piece that she quite likes. And Mr. Collins is like, "Oh, what a beautiful, like great job. I loved that." And then he has to leave and she was like, "That's it. That's how
That's
I'll get
how
him
I
to see me."
get
Because she tried being like, "Have you read this book? And what about
it.
this book?" And
Hmm.
he uninterested. Zero,
Mm.
zero interest,
Yeah,
Mr. Collins.
his eyes were on the girls, you know?
Yeah. And so when she played this piece and he liked it, she was like, "Okay, so this is the ball that the Bingleys are throwing in Pride and Prejudice." And Mary's like, "I'm going to, because at the ball they have a beautiful piano. There's the point at which people are dancing, but then there's a point where like different young ladies can go sit at the piano and like kind of show their skills." And she's like, "I will do such an incredible performance. He
Hmm.
will be unable but to look upon me and think I'm
Hmm.
great."
I will
And she gets her,
stagger him.
yes. And so she gets her piano teacher to come in and she's like, she's doing it. And then she's like, for my second piece, I must sing it. And the teacher's like, no, your
Your
voice
voice
isn't
is
that great.
no, it's not your good attribute, May. You're an
Mary,
excellent piano player, but your voice is not up to par. And Mary's
yeah,
like, I don't think you understand how much I want this, and I will do it. I don't care how, I will do it because I have set my mind to it, and this brain is prodigious. So the piano teacher kind of leaves thinking she has dissuaded Mary, and Mary's like, I'm gonna do it. I
nope.
don't care what she says.
And she doesn't let anyone know or hear her practicing, so nobody can dissuade her, and you're just,
Mm.
like, you're screaming into the book, "No, Mary, no!" 'Cause you know what's going to happen. This scene is one of the ones that lives rent-free in my brain from
It
the
is so
1995.
oh, it is so awful.
Yes. So she goes to the party. She's, wearing her nice dress again, and she goes to the piano, she plays her first piece, lovely. She gets a couple, like, polite claps, and she's bolstered. She's like, "This is
Mm.
it." She starts playing the second piece, and immediately she knows, "Oh, wow, I
She
misjudged."
sees people's faces go stiff, and
And
she
her
knows.
and she's like, "My voice, it is failing me," and she can't stop. She has to just plug ahead, and then she hears, like, scuttling happening, and then her father comes up to her and is like, at the end of the piece, and is like, "Ah, Mary, I think we've had enough. Maybe let somebody else play." And Mary is devastated,
Destroyed.
destroyed, and she knows it was Lizzie who asked her father, 'cause Lizzie at one point is like, "Don't sing." Or I don't even
Mm.
remember how that, but, like, Lizzie's like, the one who made this stop, and she's so upset with Lizzie, and she's so hurt, and Lizzie was like, "I was doing it for you," and
Yeah, I was trying
Mary.
to save you.
Yeah. And Mary, who has watched Lizzie the entire night, because what at this point in Pride and Prejudice, from Lizzie's point of view, is she's beginning to realize now that her family is in proximity to new people who are of a higher level of breeding, because within the Regency, like, if you live in a town and you're the highest family in the town, it's very easy to kind of not realize how ridiculous, but then these other people
Yeah.
move in, and it is immediately apparent to Lizzie how ridiculous her family is and how kind of inappropriate they are.
Yeah, they
and,
are a
and
bit country bumpkins, even if they are
yes.
nobility.
And, her sisters are wild, and her mother is ridiculous, and her dad doesn't do anything,
Yeah, he
and
doesn't
the
even try
entire
to be
night.
charming and sociable.
Yes, and he doesn't try stop his family or, like, direct them in any way, like, she has to force him to do it, and, Lizzie is kind of seeing the judgment from these other people and knowing that she herself is smart enough to know better, and she does know better, and Mary has watched this. Mary has watched Lizzie being embarrassed of her family the whole night, so Mary calls Lizzie out on it in this moment where Lizzie was like, "It was for you, I didn't want you to be embarrassed." She was like, "No, you didn't wanna be embarrassed, bitch. You have been embarrassed and cringing at us the whole freaking night. You didn't do this for me, bro. You did this for you." Mic drop. She runs off and decides, "I'm never going to a ball again. I'm not wearing that dress. From now on, zero emotion. We're just devoting ourselves to being a
I'm
sad
gonna
lady."
live as a consciousness in an autonomous body. I
Yeah.
am all brain,
Nothing.
no
Um
feeling.
and the book fast forwards at this point, because basically the rest of Pride and Prejudice happens, and we cut back 2 years in the future. Lizzie has been married to Darcy for like a year and a half. Jane has been married to Mingley for a year and a half. But her father has just died, and
Rather
they so
unceremoniously. Suddenly,
yes,
there's like everyone had known it would happen, but they didn't expect it to happen now. He passed in his sleep, and at that point, I had whiplash. I was like, "What?" I
what?
I felt rather sad actually. I
Yeah, because you the whole time you're like, oh, she's got to have that moment with her dad where they
yeah.
connect. Like, you as the
Mhm.
reader are like,
Where
it's
he
gonna
kind of
happen.
stops and he's like, "Maybe I was wrong about you, Mary. Things haven't been easy for you, but you are diligent and you apply yourself, like,
Yes.
in a way my other daughters don't." No, he
No,
just
it just
passes away.
and it's so tragic because there are points where she thinks about him after this and kind of wishing for that moment, and you as the reader
Yeah.
are left wishing
Yeah,
for
and
it.
she grieves for all the could have beens that will never be now. And it's just a real gut punch. Like, that is sad.
It really is. And
Especially when he was the one parent she could have a chance with. Like, you sense that there could have been something.
yeah, if he gave her enough time to realize that she, if you give her something you like to read, she will give it a solid chance. Like she was moldable, not even
Mm.
moldable. Uh she had growth in her that he didn't realize, and
Mm-hmm. He
that
never shared anything with her, so she couldn't actually grasp onto something.
and it is really sad.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so her and her mom are now displaced because obviously Lydia married Mr. Wickham, Kitty marries a lawyer and fucks off. And so it's just her and Mrs. Bennet and playing ping pong of where they go. At first they go stay with Jane and Mr. Bingley. But Miss Bingley is still living with them, and Miss Bingley's a
Mm-hmm.
bitch. And
Caroline
she
Bingley is a sour lemon.
Oh my god, and she hates that because she had her eyes set at Darcy.
Mm.
She hates that Elizabeth got Darcy, and
Mm-hmm.
she can't take it out on Elizabeth because now Elizabeth is well above
Yes,
her.
and not Jane, because Jane is Mrs. Bingley. So the most viable option is Mary, the dumpy sister who's living with us.
And she tortures Mary, and
Yeah.
and Mary has no backbone. She doesn't stand up to her. She just and is just wilting slowly but surely. And while Jane is very, nice, and Jane is not someone she's close to and she can't connect with, and there's a distanceness to Jane. um and so then she asks to go stay with Lizzie, and at first they're having a great time. It's just the two of them and the little baby Fitzwilliam. And they're having a good time. She loves her nephew. Her and Lizzie are getting closer, but then Darcy and his sister Georgiana come back into town, and Darcy is real awkward around people he don't know. And
Yeah.
so while he is loving with Elizabeth, he's loving with his
Mm-hmm.
sister, there is no space for him to be himself when Mary is around. And Mary immediately notices this. This is the kind of thing that a less observational person would not have picked up
No, that
on.
would not have occurred to them, but Mary is so acutely tuned to anyone around her because she is constantly sort of looking for threats
Hmm.
that she just senses how he wouldn't say it unless pressed, but that he is visibly uncomfortable.
And when she sees him comfortable, she's like, "Oh, there's no space for me here as well." And just the fact that her presence makes things uncomfortable makes her just again, like eh, she's hit. She's
I get
down.
it. I would feel it.
Yeah.
I'd be out
Yep.
of there.
Out of there. So she's like, "I'm going to Longbourn. I'm gonna go stay with Charlotte Collins and the
Mm,
Collinses." And
mm,
because Elizabeth's like, "You want to go stay with the Collinses?" Because Charlotte and Lizzie never repaired their friendship in this version of the story, where Charlotte and Lizzie had been close friends their entire life, but then when Charlotte swoops in and takes Mr. Collins for herself,
yeah, after Lizzie had turned down Mr. Collins
Mr. Collins,
specifically.
and Lizzie's not upset that she married someone
No,
who had proposed to her.
she's kind of horrified.
Why would you marry such an
That
idiot?
weirdo. Yeah, that
Yeah,
absurd weirdo.
I thought you were a woman of sense. What lady would
Yeah, and
ever?
kind of completely forgetting that Charlotte would not have Lizzie's attributes. She's like, girl, why would you undersell yourself like that? And
Yes.
Charlotte took offense because she felt the clock ticking. She felt she didn't have any other prospects. She felt he was a good opportunity, and that Lizzie's reaction was insulting.
And she also felt it that someone she loved so much would look at this and judge her so hardly
Mm-hmm.
that it made her because there is that feeling bad. But I mean, Elin is so correct that Lizzie has no concept of what Charlotte Lucas's situation is
Mm-hmm.
at all. And it's one of the things that I have seen from the Keira Knightley movie where Charlotte calls Lizzie out on it. She's like, "I'm 26. I'm unmarried. My family already finds me a burden. Like what the fuck would you have me do, Lizzie?" Um this Charlotte doesn't necessarily say that.
No.
But they separate. They're no longer friends. There's a big divide. But Charlotte would love to have Mary come visit. So Mary hops over and at first is having a nice time with, Charlotte. Charlotte is like, look at my house, look at all the changes I've made. And she's so
Mm-hmm.
proud. She loves the project.
I'm
And
settled. I am good.
look at my baby. Is
Mm-hmm.
this not an adorable baby
Mm-hmm.
though? And while she is very doting to Mr. Collins, like at dinner when she sees them and is like the picture of an attentive wife, she never lets him touch her. And there is this distance, and she's always like, oh, yes, he's working on the arbor. And slowly, Mary begins to realize that, like, they have no relationship and
Yeah.
that Mr. Collins is fucking depressed about it.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte might be okay, but Mr. Collins hates his life a little
Yeah,
bit.
Charlotte is all right because she went in with this practicality and she was like, yes, I will put on all these airs and this is what I'll get in return and it will be worth it. Whereas Collins was on an entirely different page when he made the offer and married her.
Yeah.
And he feels left out and
Yes.
uh
And he's sad. There's this point where Mary sees him working on the arbor and he sits down and his head's hanging and he just looks like a defeated man and you're like, "Oh, Mr.
yeah,
Collins,
it's very
your wife
much
hates you."
it's very much that thing where the person men can be close and open with is their intimate partner. And bereft of that, Mr. Collins just doesn't have any because he doesn't have male friends. He's such a ridiculous character. He has the Berg lady whom he idolizes, kind of.
Yeah.
And then he's just awkward around everyone else and he's just lonely and sad because his wife doesn't want to
Like,
be around him.
it's so funny. Eventually, Mary asks if she can do some study in the library, and Charlotte's like, "Absolutely." And then there's one day where Mr. Collins has to come in and do some work, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mary. I will leave at once. If you should, I shall not." And Mary's like, "No, no, no, you're fine. I'm just gonna stay over. I'm not at your desk. You're all good." And he's like, "Okay." And then Charlotte's like, "I heard Mr. Collins was in there. You want me to tell him to go work in the other room? I'll tell him. You never have to see him. Don't worry, he's really good at listening." And you're just like,
Yeah.
Charlotte. But anyway, and Mary's like, honestly, he was no bother. It's his room. I'm fine. And so he will come in and work in there. And eventually one day he's like, "What are you reading?" And she's like, "Oh, this is what I'm reading." And he's like, "Oh my God, you're reading?" And she's like, "Yes, I'm trying to find out happiness. Like, I'm trying to understand what makes people happy." And she's reading like Hume and like all of, and he's like, "Holy crap, this is crazy." And after a while, he's like, "You know what? Do you mind if I give you something to read? I'd love to, like, I'm as a minister, a man of the cloth. I am educated and I've done a lot of this study." And he's like, "And I think I could be of benefit to you." And he is, absurd, but proves useful in this, where he says, most people, you would not give them the Greeks to read because it could be quite diverting and and but he's like, "But I think you have the mind to do it." And he gives her Aristotle and she reads it and they have conversations about it and it proves really good. And then eventually he's like, "You want to learn Greek? I'll teach you." And they're having like this really great like
Mm-hmm.
study, and she's like, "Wow, I have a friend, someone who wants to hear what I have to say and study
Yeah.
with me." And it's
Pierce
this
of the mind.
yeah, and she's like, "This is great." And then eventually she mentions to Charlotte, like, because Charlotte's like, "You're spending an awfully lot of time," and she's like, "Yeah, we're studying together. You should study with us. It is so great. It's such a good time." And Charlotte's getting a little frosted, and eventually Mrs. Hill has to be like, "So you're spending a lot of time alone with a married man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think his wife hasn't noticed." And at this point Charlotte is getting icy towards Mary. And Mary begins to put together that Charlotte, despite not wanting a relationship with her husband, is jealous of this thing that is happening. And despite the fact that they have done nothing actually wrong as far as like propriety's sake, that it is kind of still a little bad.
It's an
We've
overstep because at this time, men and women would not have social casual relations. Men were very consigned to other men. for friends, and women
Mhm.
were expected to busy themselves with the home and with the company of other ladies.
And if you were developing a friendship with a man, it was as a single woman, it was with the potential of maybe
Mm-hmm.
eventually marrying that guy. Like that was the way things kind of worked. And Mary, who has not had suitors or friends, is not acutely aware of this. And so when Mrs. Hill points it out to her and she realizes that Charlotte is actually jealous and what's happening, she's like, "Oh shit. I have to stop." So she tells him, he was like, she's like, "I can't study with you anymore. This is not like we're spending too much time together. I don't think it is going well." And he is like, "Absolutely, if that's what you want." He's a bit upset about it, where he's like, "No, but we're just studying and you're doing such a good
Yeah,
job."
and he
And
tells her, I didn't actually know what I was missing, but in unite our minds uniting and us exchanging ideas and thoughts, I have been so enriched. And she's like, yeah,
and
me too, but
me
it's
too.
not appropriate.
And then he hits her with the, "Man, I kind of wish I would have paid more attention to you
Yeah,
back in the day.
I was
I've
an
thought to myself,
idiot. If
yeah,
only I had seen what was
Mary,
right before me.
I can't help but wonder what my life would have been like had I married you." And she's like, "Oh no." And so but she gives him
Yeah.
great advice, because he basically says, "I'm a weirdo and I know that. I have struggled making friends. My father was very cruel. I didn't have a great example. After his death, I went away to school and I tried all of these things and I've always struck the wrong note." And what Mary hears is a lot of the same things that she has felt as a
Yeah.
person. She's always striking the wrong note. She doesn't know how to interact with people. And so he has covered it up by trying to be like obsequious and like, "Oh, forgive me," like, and the
Mm,
ridiculousness. And she's like, but he has just struggled finding genuine intimacy with people, and he has so enjoyed it, and like blah blah blah. And she's like, "Maybe you need to tell this to your wife." Like, and
mhm.
and and she's not saying it negatively, but she's like, "You're a pretty good dude. Maybe you should have this conversation with your wife and kind of tell her, and maybe you guys should work on having a better relationship,
Yeah,
and you
like
guys need to be honest."
connect,
Yeah.
communicate.
And unbeknownst to the two of them, Charlotte's outside in the garden watching this conversation happen. But eventually, Mr. Collins does go and talk to his wife, and all of a sudden, she sees that Charlotte is, working with him on the arbor. And Charlotte even makes the point of being like, "Wow, like because there's this point where Mary's gonna leave, and Charlotte's like, "Hey, you can never come by again, but I do thank you for helping us. Like, whatever you said to him, he came to me, and I realized that I'd gotten too set in my ways, and I never gave him the opportunity
Mhm.
to be happy with me, or for me to be happy with him, and,
Mhm.
create a
Didn't even
relationship."
kind of consider that it was a possibility.
And that, we can work on that. And so, because at first when we entered this section, I thought they did my girl Charlotte a bit dirty. I thought they were kind of making her a bit of a bitch. I was worried about how Hadlow, because like again, I love me a practical girl
Mm.
making the best of a situation. And then at a certain point you're like, "Charlotte, you've gone too far." Like, this man is miserable. We're not here to make people miserable.
Mhm.
um and like, this is it. This is your life. And so I kind of liked that by the end, like, they're
Yeah,
actively
it's a
working on it.
little cute because they come together, and you can see that it was kind of a case of neither of them knew how to start. They didn't know what they needed. But once something gets them going, they have the drive and they have the will to form an emotional relationship too.
And there's this really cute scene where it's the two of them kind of working on the arbor, and their little son is out there with them, kind of like
Mm,
fucking around as a toddler does. And it's heartwarming because he made a point of, his son is his hope that he will have this ability to become close to someone, and that he wants the relationship that he wanted out of his father, he's hoping to
mm.
have that with his son. And so seeing this moment where like it's the three of them and his son is there and they're all having a good time, you're like,
It's
it
so
is
cute.
possible.
It is
and
so
it's
cute.
and it's crazy because I thought about what Will had said to me about like what he wanted out of Lydia, and let me find it.
Yeah.
Ba-ba.
While you do that, I'll mention that I thought it was really interesting too that when Mr. Collins developed this connection with Mary, his fulfillment through that emotional connection was that he began to think that, oh, maybe I missed out on not seeing you as a potential partner. Whereas from Mary's side, it's more like it crystallizes that she has sympathy for Mr. Collins and she likes him as a person, but there is nothing else. Like, she doesn't actually think she would have grown to love him.
Love him. Yeah. Which is a really great thing. But so what Will said was, I'm disappointed the book doesn't seem to go into the other Bennet sisters, especially the twinny ones. Uh, that's the thing about the book. It seems it's a little less ambitious than we'd like in theme. And I made the point of, I have no fucking interest in Lydia, babes. Fuck Lydia. He goes, see, you could be getting an inside view of how miserable her life is. I was like, I don't want to see her miserable. Like, I have no interest in seeing Lydia, but I don't want to see her miserable. Like, I'm not here to bring down girls, because I made the point that what I find satisfying about a lot of Austen's dislikable characters is that eventually they eat shit and they like have like
Mhm.
they grow, and there's no way, given the situation Lydia's in, for her to eat shit and to be enjoyable. It's going to be terrible. Her life is. But anyway, he made the point, yeah, it feels like there's a lot of chance for nuance in other characters, like the parents, that goes missed in a way where Austen often gives the secondary characters some nuance and dignity. And I will say this book did that for Mr. Collins. I, as someone who has never been, I'm like, what an idiot. I was like, Mr. Call, like it
Mhm.
really gives you that. And also, I would say Charlotte as well. Charlotte becomes a much more nuanced and fleshed out character than she is in Pride and Prejudice. And,
Mhm.
she's not a flawless character. And that's what I like about it, is she feels very realistic, in the sense that there could be someone who is very practical, but practical to the point that she does not see the opportunities in front of her to make happiness for, like, she's gotten to the point where life has made it so she's had to look out for herself so much that she doesn't know how to like stop and like, what about if I was nice to this other person and then we could both be happy?
Mhm.
um so that I would say is where we get like nuanced takes of characters from Pride and Prejudice, because it's
Yeah.
not Mrs. Bennet. That's a for sure.
No.
um
I really
but yes,
appreciated, yeah, getting
yeah,
Mr. Collins. I feel like she took Mr. Collins, the sketched figure from Pride and Prejudice, and she actually did like blow him up like a balloon until he was a fully formed human, and it was very satisfactory.
it is. And he like, I'm like, oh, he's actually a good teacher, and the ways in
Yeah.
which he is a over observational kind of uh
I can fully believe that a really socially awkward person would rehearse every conversation they are ever
they
going
have.
to have. And instead of them becoming good conversationalists, they become ridiculous caricatures.
Yeah, and also I believe that once you get them talking about the things that they're interested in, and engaging with them outside of the like very thinly veiled like small talk, that he does blossom, and he turns out to be a good conversationalist and a good
Hmm.
teacher and stuff like that. It works for the character. And you're like, you know he wants to be loved, he wants to love, he has it in him, I think
Hmm.
it's possible. um so it just works. I actually quite enjoyed this section of the book.
Hmm.
And
It's
it
cute how
also
he grows into his marriage too. Like,
it is. And again, just like, that moment with his son, and you're just like, there's hope.
mm,
There's hope for him yet. But our girl Mary, there ain't no hope in this situation anymore. She's got to fuck off, and she's like, what am I gonna do? And Mrs. Hill comes in clutch once again. Mrs. Hill is like, you need to leave your past behind. You need to go somewhere you've never been and become Mary outside of the confines of her family. You have
hmm,
constantly been in the shadow of your family. You've
hmm,
kind of made this role for yourself. Go somewhere else, babe. And she's like, you know what? I shall. And she ends up thinking, like, where can I go? What can I do? Da da da. And she realizes, let me go visit my family, the Gardeners, who live in London. I've never been to London except when I was a real little kid. And they, like, I don't really know them. My sisters won't be there. And from what Jane and Lizzie said, they were great to live with for a bit. So she decides to go to London. And the Gardners, great. Excellent. They love each other. The main couple, the Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, love each other. Lots of respect here.
They're
The
such
kids,
wonderful sidekicks.
oh my God. The kids, happy, well taken care of, given the opportunity to learn, but not, in like just it. And Mary's like, oh my God, people can live like this.
And their
This is what's out
household is
there.
full of joy and warmth and care.
And it's crazy because it's very much not the life that Lizzie I think if Lizzie would think of her childhood, she wouldn't think of it as bleakly as Mary does. But even Lizzie had in Pride and Prejudice was like, oh yeah, my parents kind of hate each other.
Yeah.
And so the Gardners are great, and they're actively invested in helping Mary. And eventually, as like season is coming up, Mrs. Gardner is like, I'd like to talk to you. We're gonna start throwing some parties and having people over. And Mary's like, if you don't want me around, I'll go hide. You don't. And
Oh,
Mrs.
girl.
Gardner's like, who hurt you? No, I'm not inviting people over and sending you to your room. She's like, I think you need some new clothes and I would
Yeah.
like to take you shopping. And because at first Mary's like, I don't have money. I can't pay for that. And Mrs. Gardner is like, well, I have the money because despite being merchants, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner's, they're doing well. Their shop, excellent. Doing great business wise.
Yeah.
And they've got the money to spare. And Mary's like, no, I couldn't. And she's like, okay, this is where I bring out my ace in the hole. I've been talking to your sister, and she's like, Lizzie wants to be the one to pay for your wardrobe. She'd like to apologize for something. At first, Mary's like, oh, she thinks she can get away with just, and she's like kind of mad about it, which is nice because this moment of her getting mad at Lizzie for this thing is good. It's nice groundwork for something that's going to happen later where you're like, no, Mary, no, don't do it. But you see these moments where Mary does have a little bit of a temper, like when she gets upset. But she gives her the letter, and Lizzie's just like, hey, doll, hope you're doing okay. I often think about that time when I said something cruel to you and how embarrassing, and I'm really sorry, and it kind of plagues me, and I would really like the opportunity to help you. Please take my money. And Mary's like, wow, she has felt guilty about this thing for years, and it makes me immediately much happier. And one of the things you learned about Mary is Mary, if she's left in her own little brain, not given all the information, she's gonna take it at its worst.
She
And
has
immediately,
intrusive thoughts.
yes. And immediately once she gets the point of view from someone else, she's easy to forgive. Like it's this thing that's gonna come up later, but this is the first scene of it where like Lizzie says sorry, says it's something that's plagued her, and she's like, that's all I've ever wanted to hear. But prior to that, she was like, fuck Lizzie. She thinks she can buy my forgiveness. Literally 2 sentences beforehand. And so they go off, they're buying stuff. And at this point, Mary has gone out more. She's trying to explore, she's trying to push herself. And she said, I've spent a lot of my life, trying to find meaning in piano, trying to learn how to live by these books and Dr. Forsyth and all that. And she's like, but while she's in the gardener's house, she's going to try live as someone who should be in the gardener's house. She doesn't want to be the weird wet mop in the corner. So she's actively been trying to kind of match their lifestyle. She's been teaching her younger cousins how to play the piano, having a good time, kind of folding herself into the household. And so as she starts shopping for clothing, she's like, oh wow, I actually kind of enjoy this. And she's at first she's like, that's kind of ironic for all the years I made fun of my sisters for it. But Mrs. Gardner made the point of, I know you don't want to stand out, but sometimes by like trying too hard not to stand out, you overly stand out. But by just, like kind of meeting the bare minimum, you can just play into the background. And with a little bit of, and she realizes in that moment that like Mrs. Gardner herself isn't particularly pretty. Like she's not a beauty as it would be considered by the time period, but she dresses well, she adorns herself well. And she's like, you know what, this is the same theory I used when I bought that white and gold dress before those dances. And at the time it was solid logic, and if she's saying this, then it has to be. So she kind of decides to embrace this, and she enjoys picking out fabrics and touching it, and she begins to find her taste. And one day while in the dress shop, looking at all the samples. She's stuck between two and she can't figure it out. And somebody halloos and comes up to Mrs. Gardner, and it is Thomas Haywood, a lawyer friend of the family who is a youngin. He's I think like 25 or something. Um
Ish.
and he yeah, ish. And he is kind of I don't want to say silly, but he's got like some
He's
quirk to the
jolly.
he's
And
jolly, that's the
yeah,
term.
he's jolly, and he's kind of witty and tongue in cheek.
Yes. And uh immediately him and Mary kind of, because she's begun to learn that when people say stuff, you shouldn't hit them with like the thing from your book that you read, but you should try give like your own answer to the
Mm-hmm.
situation. So she's gotten better at talking to people. And part of that is feeling like she doesn't have to perform as much with the gardeners because they're just, nice, genuine people. And they end up having a really fun conversation. She learns that Mr. Hayward is a writer. He, on top of being a lawyer, he reviews poetry. And she's like, that's odd. How did you get into poetry? And he's like, poetry's actually great. Do you read? And they end up having a really nice conversation. And he was raised by four sisters. So he's like, I'm happy to look at the colors here and give you my advice. And
Yeah.
he's like, I'm great with cottons and muslins. Silks,
Mm-hmm.
I've got nothing for you, but cottons and muslins, I can give you some advice.
She's like, he's like, I'm preferential to the green and gold, and she's like, oh, pray tell, Mr. Hayward, how did you come to learn so much about fabrics? Are you a merchant? And he's like, no, I have sisters.
Yeah.
It's like his hidden
Scores.
superpower.
I talk to women.
I, a straight man, can talk to women.
And have deep conversations with them. Um, and so she ends up picking the green and gold that Mr. Hayward picked.
Yeah, and
And
immediately it's cute. You're like,
yeah, and
ooh.
you're immediately like, I love Mr. Hayward, because part of you thinks like John Sparrow's gonna show up at some point, and like that's the guy
Yes,
things are
because
gonna
it was
work out with.
yeah, because it was so cute in the beginning. You
Yeah.
kind of expect him to come back, but the moment we meet Mr. Tom, you just go, oh, because from the get-go, their conversation flows, and you can tell how they sort of delight in each other right off, and you're like, oh,
She's good at
this
writing
is good.
chemistry. Let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you, she is
Mm-hmm.
great at writing chemistry because you immediately feel it between the two of them, and kind of like they end up having like a cake and like having a whole conversation. Um and kind of teasing about like her reading taste, his reading taste, and she's like, oh, and so eventually he comes by to the house again, and he's like, I have a proposition. You will each of us will propose a book for the other to read, and then we'll meet up again and talk about it afterwards. And she's like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
is great. And she's like, can I go first? And she gives him this history written by a woman that she really loves. It was one of her first things that she found in her father's library that she absolutely loved. um and they read it, and he like genuinely engages with her and talks about it, and he's like, okay, mine's next. And she's like, oh god, it's gonna be poetry. I don't know
I
anything about poetry.
I thought already that he kind of distinguished himself because he took a woman writing history at this time, and he saw merit in it, and he
Yep.
enjoyed the reading experience. I was like, oh, girl, this be a rare gem.
This do be a rare gem, and he's employed in a respectable profession. Oh my god. He wears a
And he's
wig
a
when he
poet
goes.
at heart.
And he's a
He knows
and has.
emotion.
Yes, and he loves the emotion, and so he brings her Wordsworth's one of Wordsworth's collections of poetry, and she struggles with it at first. And
Hmm.
he gives her some advice about how to like approach it, and she struggles with it at first, but then like she has that moment of kind of like reading and unlocking it, and they have this
Hmm.
beautiful conversation where she describes, because he's like, I hope you don't think it's too forward, but can you tell me the particular poem and what unlocked it for you, like what that moment was. And
Hmm.
because like he has a term for what that moment is when you like you figure out a poem and what it means to you. And she's honest about her emotions in that moment. And one of the things about Mary is Mary doesn't believe she's a very emotional creature. She doesn't believe she feels things truly deeply. And she kind of makes that point, and he was like, no, 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 what you've described is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Like you
You
feel things. And
you have kind of retreated into logic as a way of self-protection.
yeah. And so then at one point he asks if Mr. Gardner would bring her to this one spot at sunrise, and because he'd like to help her like feel things. And he reads a Wordsworth poem kind of in the place that Wordsworth had been thinking about when he wrote it. And it's this beautiful moment of her watching the sunrise. She's overwhelmed by her feelings, and it's really beautiful. And you're like, oh, this guy is so into you, babe. You got this in the bag.
Yeah.
We have it. We did it, Mary. We
And
did
he's a
it
lawyer too.
too. And then
Hmm.
eventually there's this day where they go out to like this one park thing, and while they're there, a guy one of Mr. Hayward's friends pops up who happens to be hanging out with Mrs. Bingley, freaking Caroline Bingley, and the Hearsts,
Well,
who are
more particularly, she's kind of sort of hanging from his arm.
yeah. Um, and it's this guy named Mr. Ryder. I think his first name's William. I can't remember, but Ryder is one of Tom's friends. They were friends in law school, and they both like learned and love. They developed their love of poetry together. But Ryder doesn't need to work, and he did not have the stamina to actually finish law school, so he never became a
Mm.
lawyer. He's actually a relation of Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and she is kind of his benefactor, and so kind of gives him money so he doesn't have to work. And thus Caroline, and he's also like an attractive, charming man, and but
Yeah,
he's a bit loud and a bit boisterous and a bit
and a bit
frank.
vacuous in a way.
Yes.
Like he delights in everything and he kind of flits from thing to thing and loves being in the moment. He's the kind of person who starts every project with a ton of imagination and enthusiasm and then doesn't finish, but that's okay
Yes.
because he has already moved on to this next thing.
Yeah, that he's super passionate about.
Hmm.
And it's kind of just like a small scene where they kind of interact and stuff. And but he's very, like Mary at this point, she's developed a friendship with Mr. Hayward. She's with the Gardeners. She's having a great time. So she's being herself. And he's like, oh, great conversation to be had over here. So there's this point later where she's like walking about town, and she comes up to this one like church, and Mr. Hayward's there, or no, Mr. Hayward, Mr. Ryder's there, and he's like, "Oh, Mary Bennett, nice to see you. How are you doing?" And he asks her a question about what she thinks about this particular church compared to another one, and she answers honestly and gives a very, frank, intelligent answer. And he's like, "Damn, what a great answer." Mrs. Bingley or Miss Bingley's like, I hate this. And thus begins Mr. Ryder's kind of beginning infatuation with Mary, where he is also into Mary, and thus we have a little Bibito love triangle.
Hmm.
Not a real one. We know what's happening.
Yeah, but he is a very good prospect, and everyone
Yes,
knows it. And
and
he keeps kind of popping up, and they do have a liking, just in a more friendly sense.
yes, and Mrs. Gardner doth not like Ryder. She's like, don't get distracted by flamboyant, showy guys who can sometimes
Mm,
overshadow the nice guys who are less showy. Um,
hmm.
and it is only when in the same room as Ryder that Tom feels less showy, because, like we said before, he's very jolly. He can be witty.
Yeah, he kind
Um,
of he commands the conversation. He drives it. He is
yeah,
jovial. He is fun. He is witty, and only Mr. Ryder ever kind of scolds him for being stiff and boring and
yeah.
sensible.
And it's because he is so far in the opposite direction, and it's a bit of the thing that happens when Mary is by her sisters, by them being so
Yeah,
much themselves. It
exactly. It brings it out in
Yeah,
Mr. Tom Hayward, just like it brings it out in Mary when someone is so incredibly up in the air. They're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
come back down. Consider the practicalities.
Yeah,
And
and it makes them look more dull. Like, Tom
mhm,
is a little bit duller than normal
yeah,
in vicinity of Ryder.
and Mrs. Gardner does this little. They have this little side conversation that she's like, "Oh, Tom, he seems very he assured of himself, but optics can be, um,
Deceiving.
yes,
And, she's pulling for Mr. Hayward. Like, Mrs.
mm,
Gardner is pulling, and Tom or Mr. Ryder is a wrench in the machinery, and she wants to make
mhm,
sure that Mary doesn't give too much attention to the very easily to give attention to guy. Um, and eventually, Mr. Hayward gets really busy with stuff because he has cases that he has to work. But one of the things they did plan was to go to the lakes. Mrs. Gardner has always wanted to do a trip to the lakes, and obviously Tom Hayward does because Wordsworth and the lakes, I mean,
mhm,
come on.
mhm.
And so Mr. Gardner's like, "You know what? Let's do it. And Tom, you come. Let's go to the lakes." And our girl Mary's like, "I cannot believe my luck. I get to go to the lakes with this guy." And Mary refuses to acknowledge that she has feelings for him as anything other than a friend. And there's points where she like specifically like where Mrs. Gardner will look at her like, "Hey," and she's like, "I cannot acknowledge. I must not give the slight like idea to anyone that I think anything more of this for fear of utter embarrassment."
Yeah, I cannot get my hopes up, and I absolutely must not let anyone else see it either. Like, embarrassment isn't the feeling of having failed. It is the perception that everyone is there to see it, and she's very much like, "Nope, not gonna be me. Not again."
Yeah. And in the meantime, while they're waiting to go to the lakes and Tom is working on all of his cases, Mr. Ryder keeps showing up, and he's a bit like as while being so jovial and so kind of on the one end of the scale, he's also a bit socially, while incredibly charming, he's socially out there, where like he thinks some of the social niceties and constraints of the Regency era is really silly. He thinks people should be able to say what they mean. He thinks that these very big separations between the genders is very silly. He's a bit of a hippie, like free
Yeah,
love
he's a
baby.
hippie. He's a romantic and a visionary, and he's like, we should live in means of the heart, and we should not let silly things such as gender come between us. These worthly rules diminish us rather than enrich us, and blah blah blah.
And and because he has all of like these opinions and he's quite learned, he likes talking to Mary, who's kind of like the other like, and he likes her practicality. There's things that he
Mm-hmm.
like the and he like there's this point where he takes her to like an ice shop and they have like yummy ice and riveting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then she goes back, and it was during this trip where she kind of tells him that they're getting ready to go to the lakes, and she's super excited, and they're going, and he's like, "Oh, is Tom going?" And she's like, "Yeah, Mr. Haywood's coming," and she doesn't think anything of it. They end up going to the lakes. They have a great time. When there's a scene where her mom sees her kind of like for the first time now that she's got her new fashion, and her mom's like, "I see Mrs. Gardner was able to do what I was unable to. Nobody like fucking bitch, Mrs. Bennet
Yeah, it's
Sister,
like,
man."
ah, Mary, you're almost passable now.
Yeah, like just and the thing is, the shame is her compliments. Nobody else would think of as compliments, but Mary is over the
Starved.
moon. She's
Mm.
so starved for anything positive that even these backhanded compliments from her mother, she's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh my god, I'm
Yeah, like
passable."
sadly, pathetically, she just laps up these little scraps that her mother rather condescendingly throws her way.
Throws them, yeah. And then they go to the lakes. Mr. Hayward is there, and like the first little bit of this trip, great. Her and Mr. Hayward are getting even closer. They're
Mhm.
having these beautiful walks and talks, and they tried drawing because like that's what you do when you travel in this age of one of the things you did was you would take a sketchbook and you would go
Yeah.
draw or paint.
Yeah, plein air painting. You follow in the
Yeah.
footsteps of the poet. You sit on scenic vistas and you contemplate and you
Yeah.
delight in the senses that is there.
And they're good at the contemplating and the delighting, but they're bad at the drawing, and they're both bad, and they have this beautiful conversation about it, and, like, Mary's like, "Oh my god, it's happening," and she finally, on this trip, is like, "I love this guy, and I think he likes me too," like,
Yeah, she's
oh my
like, "I
god,
think he might be winding up for a proposal?"
proposal, like,
Yeah.
she's literally, like, and it's idyllic, they're having such a good time, and then they're planning a trip because there's this one mountain or hill mountain, depending on what you call it, where if you go up it high enough, you can see the ocean and you can see all the way to Scotland, and it's supposed to be the most beautiful vista, and, he's like, "I think we should climb or hike up Scafell," and everybody's like, Mr. Gardner's like, "Yes, absolutely, I'd love to do it," and Mary's like,
Mhm,
"Yes," and yeah, and Mrs. Gardner's like, "I want to hear if this is possible
mhm.
and
Sounds a little
recommended."
out there.
Yeah, this is you're gonna drag ladies up this mountain,
Mhm,
and basically they learned that as long as you have a guide, it's perfectly doable, even for ladies, as long as you're in good boots. And
mhm.
so like
And
they're planning to
allegedly it
do it.
was, Mr. Wordsworth's wife who had
Sister,
written oh, sister, who had
yeah.
written, what was it? A travel guide or something similar to
So Wordsworth kind of wrote the travel guide, but when he talked about Scafell, the letter talking about going to the top and the view and how beautiful it was believed to be written by his sister.
Mhm.
And so he was like, "See, Wordsworth's sister got up there. Mary could do it.
Mhm.
Mary's just as capable." So like they're set. She's so excited. And then one night, some people come into the inn late at night, and the next morning, oh my god, it's writer Miss Bingley and the Hearsts. Jiminy Christmas, the last thing anybody wanted.
Yeah.
And
Won't it be delightful that, the sourpuss, Caroline Bingley, who makes everyone miserable except Mr. Ryder because he doesn't notice quite how miserable she is, uh, has
yep,
showed up to
we even
enrich our
missed
days.
we didn't even go into it, but there's this part where Mr. Ryder hosts a dinner at his house, and Caroline moves Mary's seat to sit next to Mr. Hurst on the opposite end of the
Yeah.
table away from everybody else, and everybody's like,
Oh
"Why
my
is Mary sitting there?"
god.
And Ryder's like, "Yeah, I thought it was weird. Caroline said you wanted to sit there and talk to him," and she was like,
Mhm. But Mary it was actually a rather nice moment because Mary is like, "She put me here to embarrass me and to, like, place me out of, to single me out, and I'll be damned if I let her." So she really applies herself to Mr. Hurst and finds that one topic that he can just go on about while he gets, privately sloshed for the evening. And
Mhm.
afterwards, he's like, "That's a damn fine girl, that."
Yeah, you guys talk about how plain she is. That's a nice girl. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Um, and she's so pleased with herself that she was able to like thwart Caroline's. But anyway, so that was a bit ago.
yeah,
But all of these people are here. The gardeners are like, "Oh, we hate the Miss Bingley and that
yeah.
whole thing." But and Tom is also like, "Why the fuck is this guy here?" And he's like, "You know, Miss Bennet told me that you guys were going on this trip, and I thought, you know what? Me too. Why not? I went and I visited my Lady Catherine, and
Oh,
then I decided, what else would I do? I'll come here." And Tom and he's like, "Oh, Tom, can I talk to you tonight? I have some legal
yeah.
stuff I want to talk to you about."
Mhm.
And he has a conversation with Tom, and Mary's kind of like something's off, and she goes and she looks at them, and like in the conversation, Mr. Ryder is very animated. Tom is looks concerned. And then from this point on, Tom is acting weird. He's pulling back from Mary
He's
a bit.
acting
And
so strange.
so strange. He's not engaging with her. He's being like polite and nice, but not intimate in the way they'd been before, and she's like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Mhm.
And he ends up saying, like, she says, like, "You're really preoccupied. Is something wrong? Can I help?" And he's like, "I There's a decision I have to make, and I've made it, but now I have to deal with the outcome." And I thought that Mr. Ryder told Tom that he was going to propose to
That
Mary.
Yes, that's what I thought as well, and that Mr. Ryder was deciding to be stupid and noble and was gonna fall on his sword and let his friend go
Let's
first,
Yeah,
kind of.
and he was like, "I didn't have the courage to, nut up and do it first, and I didn't tell anyone, so I can't stand in Ryder's way, and blah blah blah." And
Mhm.
you're gonna find out later that's not exactly what happens, and it's even dumber.
Yeah, it's even
Fucking
dumber. Oh, God.
and it's called self-consciousness and projecting. That's what's happening to Tom right now. Uh and so he's like pulling back, and she's like, "What the heck is happening?" And
Yeah,
then
and
when
Mary
they
keeps commenting how miserable he looks, like, because he just physically begins to wither.
wilt.
Yeah.
And they decide to do the Scuffell climb, and at this point he's like, I Tom is like, "I don't know if like the Bingleys, if Miss Bingley and the Hursts are up for the," and he's trying to be
Mhm.
like, like, "Hey, the rest of us have been walking and doing a lot of stuff to kind
Mhm.
of prep for this.
We're
You guys."
active. Are
Yeah.
you sure they're gonna be okay?
Yeah. And Ryder's like, "No, everyone's going to be fine. What are you
Yeah,
talking
because
about?"
he's not accustomed to thinking about other people. He isn't malicious, and he isn't maliciously ignorant, because some people just don't really care about others, but he has this sense of childish overconfidence where he's like, "No, it will be fine. It will be wonderful." And and they
Not quite.
Yeah, and
And
Mr.
there's a
Hayward
point.
again is made to feel like the dull character
Yeah.
who's just, cramping on everyone's style, to use a very outdated expression.
Yeah, and Ryder even asks Mary for her input, and Mary wants to go up Scuffell so much because she wants to experience this thing with Tom. Like,
Mhm.
she has been looking forward to, so she speaks in
Yeah, and
favor
she
of
thought
the
if she
experience.
figured it was a chance for her to speak more intimately to him and try to figure out what had happened between them, like.
Yeah. And so when she's like, "Yeah, I think we should do it," he's like, "What?" And he looks like hurt, and she's like, "Oh no, what if he's misread?" And there's a point where earlier where he's like, "Oh, I heard Tom's visiting you too much. Do you want me to tell him to stop?" And she means like, "Nah, it's fine." And he thinks she means that he wants to see her see she wants to see Mr. Ryder more.
He thinks that she understands the implications of that, and that when she says, "No, it's fine, I enjoy his company," she means it as a possible suitor, whereas Mary is just like, "No, as a person, I find him pleasant at
Yeah, it's
times."
it's a good I like having a friend. It's a good
Mhm.
time. And again, not understanding the implications. Um
No.
And, so they end up going up Scuffell, and it is, a little bit hard. At a certain point, Mr. Gardner, Mr. and Mrs. Hurst turn back, and the rest of them are gonna go up to the top, and they get there, and it's beautiful, and it's kind of like this nice moment. Uh, all the feeling that to be had is there, and as they're going up, excuse me, Mary has been, like, trying to talk, and, like, Tom has been a little bit more normal with her, and she's, like, a little bit hopeful, but then when they get up
Mhm.
there, the guy's like, "Hey, guys, there's a storm brewing, we need to head back now before that storm catches us up
Mhm.
on the mountain,
We need
and
to hurry down.
we need to hurry down," and they're like, "We've been up here, like, 10 minutes, what do you mean we need to hurry?" And he was like, "It's a storm,"
Yeah,
and they're like,
and
"No,
instantly
this."
Mr. Ryder's like, "This is a perfect opportunity for us to experience what Wordsworth writes about in this poem of the storm at the peak of this majestic mountain." And Tom is like, "No, that's an awful idea. We should hurry down. Listen to the
Yeah,
guide. We
like,
hired them to give them their professional opinion."
And
And
his
Mr. Ryder's like,
professional.
"Ah, must you dull this wonderful moment, Tom?"
And he's going to, because he turns they turn to Mary and they're like, "Mary, what do you think?" And Mary is pissed because earlier there was a perfect opportunity for Tom to explain, like Mary gave him an opening to explain what the hell was going on, and
Mm.
he didn't. And she's fucking pissed. Now she could have been honest and a little bit and been like, "Hey, I've missed our chats," but she held herself because she's just angry. She's just, because she's realized at this point that he's jealous of Ryder, and that
Yeah, and
she is.
she's like, "He is punishing me for that?"
Yeah, because he's jealous of this guy that I don't even like. Why wouldn't he talk to me about? And she's gotten angry. And again, she's assuming what's going on
Mhm.
in his head, and she's just pissed. So she's like, "Yeah,"
Yeah.
even though her own brain tells her we should go down the mountain. He's like, "Yeah, Ryder's right. Let's see the storm, babes." And Tom's like slapped in the face, shocked Pikachu, uber
Mhm.
upset, and he
And
convinces the
deeply,
guy.
deeply hurt.
Yes, deeply hurt, and she immediately realizes, "Oh, no."
Yeah,
Oh,
this
wow.
was a bad mistake. And
Yeah,
I could see how some people might think that this drama is contrived, but it actually, in my opinion, makes rather much sense because part of why Mary gets so incensed is because she perceives that by avoiding to communicate with her, Tom, Mr. Hayward, as the man who is more free to express these things in a more direct manner, has sort of denied her the opportunity to repair the rift between them. And in order for her to do it, he would be kind of forcing her to act outside the woman's role.
role. She'd be
And
breaking the laws of propriety.
mhm. And as a woman, she is already stronger held to propriety than men are. So that is part of her very real anger and outrage with the situation she is put in. So she's like, "No, you know what? We came here to behold emotions, and I want to behold these emotions."
And let's see this fucking storm. And it also connects back to that moment I mentioned earlier where Lizzie, she finds out Lizzie's wants to pay money and she's angry, and that like initial like acerbic
Mhm.
response,
Mhm.
and it's because she is assuming what is happening in Lizzie's head, and then once she actually gets what's happening, she immediately, and that's what's happening. She's put too much thought and her own thought and her own insecurities and everything, and bitterness, and she's been frustrated with her position as a woman and how she can't just do stuff for a
Yeah.
while, and so
And
this whole
she
situation culminates.
rebels against this perceived emotional burden.
Yes. And so she does, and Tom is just slapped in the face, absolutely shook. They
Yeah,
end up
because he's been feeling like a wet lettuce next to Mr. Ryder half the trip already.
Yes. And then so they start going, they wait around up there, and then it starts raining, and at first it's beautiful, it's really cool, and then they have to start going down. Like, cuz eventually the guide's like, "Now is the moment.
Yeah, we
We have
have
to
to
start
leave.
going down."
Yeah.
And they start going, and immediately it's miserable. They are soaked through. The way has now become muddy because you going up, you're like, "Oh, I can't wait to go down." But now going
Mhm.
down is even worse because it's muddy and slippery, and at one point she like falls and like ends up on her knees, and Mr. Hayward comes, holds her up, and the whole time she's like, "I need to talk to him and apologize. I need to explain
Mhm.
what happened. I will do it, but not now. We can't do it in the middle of this rainstorm." Um, and they like literally they're struggling
Yeah.
their way down, Miss Bingley struggling.
When they do get down, like her dress, like the layers of the women's clothing when soaked through are quite heavy. So she is just exhausted by the time they
Yes.
actually get down.
And the Mrs. Gardner kicked up enough of a fuss back at the end to be like, "We need to send a search party out and get my girl. Like, where the fuck's my niece?"
Mhm.
Um, and so Mr. Gardner and some of the people from the inn come with some donkeys, or ponies, and the ladies get back up on them and they get them back. Everybody has warm showers, and she's like, "Okay, I'll talk to him tomorrow."
Mhm.
Because it is just like, and
Yeah,
I will
like
explain everything. I will
yeah.
break propriety.
Mhm.
I will explain. We will
Yeah.
make sure we deal with this.
It's worth this risk this faux pas. I will do it because he means that much to me.
Yep.
And also, I think that when he saw her need, he showed her a bit of tenderness. So she's like,
Yes.
okay, it's not just in my head.
No. And again, his jealousy, like she needs to just set it right. And the next morning, he's gone. He left. He was called away on business, and he's gone to spend time with his family in whatever place they live. And he's gone. And also, he won't be back in London for a while, and he won't see them because he has stuff to do. So it'll be a while until he can call upon them. And our girl is devastation.
Yeah.
And you're just like, Tom, you absolute fucking coward!
I was so
Why
upset.
would you do this?
I was secondhand angry at the guy. I was like, Jesus,
Yeah.
F Christ.
Like, you better, in my head, I was like, you better have had an actual reason to leave. Like, you better have had a legit reason to leave in the night, you son of a bitch.
And I
No.
was thinking too, I was like mind melding with the author. I was like, you better not disappoint me now. Like, you have
Yeah.
been leading and stringing me along for too long for this to go down the drain.
Yes, like, you better get this right. And so
Yeah.
Mary goes back. She's extra spressy depressy, like, so much, and everybody's like, what happened
Mhm.
in, like,
She's either crying or she's walking around like a zombie, sort of. And everyone's
yes,
low-key worried for her. But at the
and
same
eventually,
time, they can't really get they sense that it's got something to do with Tom. But he is also, as he's off in the countryside, he's somewhat inaccessible to them. So they're like, we just have to wait. That's all we can
yeah,
do now. Like, it's all up to him. You can do nothing but wait, Mary. And
yeah,
Mary's like,
because Mary's like, should I write him a letter? And Mrs. Gardner's like, absolutely not. You cannot start correspondence with a man.
yeah.
Like,
And it's so frustrating.
yes, but Mrs. Gardner's a G because she realizes, she's like, this is I can't. So she sends a letter to Tom's mother to be like, where the fuck's your son, bitch?
Mhm.
And she's like, he left and we don't know where he is. He said he needed to go walking, and you're just like, what the hell? And so Mary's like, okay, I guess I just have to wait. And she eventually starts coming out of her funk a little, where she starts getting back into the things she enjoys. Mr. Ryder starts showing up again,
Mr.
and
Ryder
they
is entirely immune to her misery, so he keeps showing up almost every day to have delightful little interactions with
yes,
Mary. And she kind of she sort of knows what he's about by this time, but she is not ready to acknowledge it to herself. She's just like, no, he's just a friend. And at this time, he's also someone who kind of lifts my mood a little. Like,
yes, and he does. He lifts the mood, and she's gone
mhm.
back out to kind of explore London, and the whole time you're just sitting there being like, and then she bumped into Mr. Hayward, and it's never Mr.
Yeah,
Hayward.
and it just doesn't happen. Instead,
And
she
you're just like,
bumps into goddamn Bingley.
again, and it's like, and it just keeps happening. Eventually, her mother comes to town, uh, to be like, "Hey guys, I'm here for treatments," and she's like, "Mary," because Mr. Ryder comes over one day, and Mrs. Bennet is like, this guy's into
Cha-ching!
Mary, and she's like,
Who's this?
cha-ching, dollar bills, y'all. And she's like, he's nice, he's handsome, and he likes Mary. And Mary's like, we don't know that. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me, Mary? Are you blind? Are you a fucking idiot?
Yeah.
That guy's here for you. And so then she starts being like overly like, oh, Mr. Ryde, like the whole
Mhm.
thing every time he comes over,
Yeah, she
trying to
becomes
imply,
cloying.
yeah, and Mary's like, I don't want to marry that, and she's like, of course you want to marry that guy. That's like, if he asks,
Yeah,
you say like,
he's your last chance, Mary.
uh,
Do you want to be
and
an old spinster?
and there's this whole like build up, and then he comes over one day and he says, Mary, I like you a lot. Would you do me the honor of coming away with me, living with me, being with me, and I love your
We can
intellect, I love
leave
your
everything
mind.
behind. We can escape this
Let's
stuffy old rooms. Let's go to Italy and live
let's go to
every
Italy.
day
Yeah.
as if we are free spirits.
And she's like, "I can't marry this guy." She's like, "It's just," and she's like, "No, thank you. I'm flattered, but like I don't love you. It's this isn't for me. Thanks, but no thanks." And he's like, "Oh, well, I tried." And he leaves. And then she realizes after the fact, "Holy shit,
He
this guy didn't actually
he
ask me
never
to."
said the words marry.
He was asking her to run away with him as his mistress.
Mhm.
And she's like, but she knows him well enough at this point to know that it's not an insult coming from him. He's not saying you're not, because a lot of time when people had mistresses, it was either women that they couldn't marry for one reason or another,
Yeah, it was
or they will,
illicit in nature, whereas he's
yeah,
just that kind of philanderer who doesn't quite understand that whether or not we want to, society's rules kind of apply to us, and if we do not conform, we will have consequences. He's just like, we'll live this wonderful life and just take every day as it comes and we'll be happy. And
yep,
the whole marriage thing is just a silly tradition that has everything to do with law and nothing to do with happiness. And that's how it
yeah.
works in his brain. And she's like, by God.
Yeah, well, she was like, I can't believe. She's like, thank God I didn't realize that in the moment, you
Yeah.
know. And she's like, okay, he'll probably lick his wounds out of his embarrassment for a while, so I don't have to worry about seeing him. And then he comes the next day, and he wants to speak to Mary, and this time her mom is there. And she's
Hmm.
like, yes, talk to Mary. And Mary's like, I don't want to talk. And so he's like, you know what? I just wanted to apologize. I realized to ask a respectable lady like yourself, like I got
Hmm.
ahead of me and it was really rude, and I'm so sorry. And she's like, it's fine, water under the bridge. And he's like, so to apologize, will you marry me? And she's like, no.
She's like, what?
What?
We gone
What
through
do you
this.
mean?
I gave you the answer yesterday.
Why are we doing this again? And she's like, no, I don't love you. And he's like, but you could learn to love me. And he's like, also, because she was like, we're not the same, like personality wise. You
Yeah.
get bored of me. And he's like, actually, you have a lot of strengths that I lack in. Your practicalness, you'll stick to things, you're
Hmm.
loyal. And he's like, and you could make me a better man. I think you would make me the man I'm supposed to be. And she realizes that a younger version of herself would be like, yeah, I
I'll
could,
do
just like
that.
she did with
That's.
Mr. Collins,
Hmm.
you know? And she's like, no, I don't want to be a teacher to someone. And
No,
she's just like,
I
and
don't
he's
want
like,
to become my parents. Kind
yeah.
of also. I want
And
a marriage between equals.
equals. And he's like, you know what? I'll give you time. Give me your answer when you've had a chance to think it through. And like she knows what her answer is, but she's a little, because he said some nice stuff. She's a little, but she
Yeah.
knows she's not going to say yes. He
No,
leaves.
she's being polite. He's asking her to think about it, and kind of to spare his feelings. She's like, "I'll think
Okay.
about it, but
Yeah, there's no chance.
mm-hmm.
And so afterwards, Mrs. Bennet's like, "What happened? What happened? Did he ask you to marry him?" And she's like, "Yep." And she's like, "Oh, marry." And then like Mrs. Gardner comes, she's
Finally,
like,
all
"Hey,
my work is coming to fruition."
yeah." And she's like, "Oh, Mary's going to marry Mr. Ryder." And Mrs. Gardner's like, "The fuck? What?" And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, actually, I didn't say yes." And they're like, "What?" And she's like, I'm thinking about it, but I don't think I want to marry him. And she's like, "What do you mean you don't want to marry him?" And that starts like a night of her having to like think over some stuff. And Mrs. Gardner comes and has a conversation with her and was like, "Listen, we're gonna have a real conversation." She was like, I know that there's a lot of complex emotions happening here, but you need to seriously take Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Ryder's, like, because Mrs. Gardner thought Mr. Ryder was all talk, no action, and that
Yes.
it was going to be, but now
That's
that
why
he's
she
made her,
warned Mary in the beginning. She's like, "Don't be one of these girls who let these charming, dashing men lead you astray." But now that he has
yes,
expressed his seriousness, she's like, "You should entertain this possibility."
yeah, he's charming, he's nice, he's got money, like
Mm-hmm.
he's in a good situation, he's a decent guy, and because like at one point, Mary tells her mom, "I like someone else," and then she's like, "Abandon the hand is worth more than your dude somewhere not here. And which, like, that's true. A bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. And currently, Mr. Hayward is in the fucking bushes.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, at first, like, her mom's like, "Oh, there's another guy. Where is he? Absolutely,
Yeah,
let's."
and they're like, we don't even know in which bush he is.
Yeah, and then she's like, "Never mind, he doesn't exist. This is the one." And she's like, Mrs. Gardner's like, "Your mother's not entirely wrong. Like, you have a choice. You can take this, like, sure thing and make a as decent life for yourself as you can, even though I know you love Mr. Hayward, or you just have to wait and
Mhm.
acknowledge that you might be waiting forever
Yeah.
for Mr. Hayward and that
Mhm.
it might
You
lead
might
to
not be able
disasters."
to reconcile
Yeah.
this rift.
And it's a lovely practical conversation, and it's because it's not romantic in nature. Again, it's acknowledging the practicalities of marriage as the way women make their lives. Like, this is how you
Mhm.
social climb, this is how you make money, this is how you do stuff. And not everyone gets to be in the situation like Mr. and Mrs. Gardner, where, like, he relies on his wife for his business, for decisions. Like, she's a part of his how he does everything. Mr. and Mrs. Gardner are equals and they love each other and it's a great relationship.
Mhm.
Um and by far I think one of, like, the strongest in the book. And Mary is like, and but she's also like a practical woman, Mrs. Gardner. She's like, not everybody gets what I got.
Yeah, few are so lucky.
Yeah. And so Mary thinks about it and she's like, "No, I don't." So she writes a letter to Mr. Ryder and she's like, "Thanks, but no thanks. I don't love you and it's not going to happen." Um and then she meets Caroline Bingley while she's out and about, and Caroline, like Caroline is in her neighborhood. Caroline would never be caught dead in the neighborhood where the Gardeners live. And
Mhm.
she's there cuz she went to the house to talk to Mary and Mary was out. And she's like, "Let's go to that ice shop. We need to have a conversation." And basically she's like, "Did you say no to Mr. Ryder to make
Just
him want
to
you more?
just to whet his appetite, sort of.
Are you pulling in Elizabeth? Like, you Bennet sisters, you act all country bumpkin and stuff, and then you're machinating, and you're like,
Yeah.
from Caroline Bingley's point of view, yeah, maybe what happened with Elizabeth, like, she rejects Darcy
Yeah,
only to
and to
accept
her
it
eyes, that it probably does not make sense at all.
at all. And because she's been chasing Mr. Ryder this whole
Mm.
time, and Mr. Ryder told her what happened. And she's like, "Are you just doing it?" And then she's like, "No, I'm not. I love this other guy." And because she's like, "You're in love with Mr. Hayward, aren't you? I saw you mooning at him." And she was like, "Yeah." And that's, I told Mr. Ryder I don't want to marry him, and I don't. I'm just gonna, wait. And Caroline Bingley's, "Well, thank you for the conversation. Fuck off." And our girl, Mary, like, she has gone to the point where she no longer lets Caroline steamroll her. She bites back. She says some acerbic things. There's a point earlier where she's talking about, like, being rejected, and Mary's like, "You would know a lot about getting rejected, wouldn't you, Mary?" Or
Mhm.
Caroline, because she got rejected by Darcy.
Mhm.
um and so Mary's kind of found her backbone, and she even says at the end of this interaction something, and I don't remember what it was, because at this point you're racing to the end as a reader. You're like,
Yeah,
when is he?
she says something along the lines of, "Yes, I love this man. It will be him or it will be no one, and you may tell him so if it suits you, or you may do what you want with this information, but it will not be Ryder."
Yeah.
And that's that.
And Caroline's like, "Perfect. He's the guy I want." Oh, and also you discovered that Ryder's actually rich AF now.
Yeah.
Catherine de Bourgh is disowning her daughter and leaving all of her money to Mr. Ryder, which Mr. Ryder did, to his credit, did not tell Mary. He wanted Mary's answer on his own merits, not him becoming a wealthy ass son of a bitch all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Um, Caroline Bingley, who was happy to marry him before, is now ravenous to get in
Mhm.
on this. And so, like, the two of them depart, and then she Mr. Hayward's in the like a couple of days or like a couple of weeks later, she gets a note like Mrs. Gardner runs in and is like, he's here," and she's like, "Who the fuck's
Yeah.
here?"
Yeah,
And
she had
and
so totally given up that at first she wasn't even aware of what was happening.
who is Mr. Ryder back? That's weird. That would be
Mhm.
really embarrassing. How many times? And it's Mr. Hayward. He is literally here. And she's like, "Oh shit." And then she's like, "You must run down and hurry." And she's like, "No. I need to get my emotional bearings. I am not running down.
Mhm.
I have shit I wanna say, and I'm going to get my head it straight before I go down."
Mhm.
So she
We
makes
have
him wait.
one chance for this
Yeah.
conversation, baby. We have to do it right.
And she comes in and he's like, "Mary, you look great. How are you doing?" And she's like, because he's like, "I need to say some stuff to you. Because she's like, "It's been fucking months, bro." And he's like, "Yes, I'm so sorry. I need to explain." And she's like, "No, before you get to say a fucking word, I'ma speak. It's not
Mhm.
right. This is not the way these conversations are supposed to go. I'm supposed to wait for you to talk and then I'm supposed to respond, but not today.
Yeah,
I
I'm
am going to
sick of
speak first."
waiting.
Yeah. And she tells him everything. She explains what's happened, explains why she agreed with Mr. Ryder at the top of the mountain,
Mhm.
explains the whole thing, and also that she loves him and that she's missed him so goddamn much, and
Mhm.
why, and da da da. And then he's like, "Oh, Mary, I love you too," and they like hug, and he puts his head on her head, and they're like having this whole conversation. And she was like, they basically like he's like, "Will you marry me?" She's like, "Absolutely." And then they're sitting on the couch and he's like, "I should tell you what happened on my end." And this is the scene where you're like, in an Austen novel, you don't get this scene. She goes like she would go downstairs, say her piece, and then like it would fade to black and we
Yeah,
would
and
learn it all in a summary.
yeah, we'd like get a little epilogue of how they
Mhm.
settled into their life and and maybe what other people around them thought a little about it or something like that. But no.
Exactly. But no, we're getting like the full scene. So he explains all of his thoughts that like they have a whole conversation about it. They kiss like 3 times. You're scandalized. The
Yeah.
reader scandalized. And then like, everybody finds out the gardeners are so fucking happy. They're like, "Yes, this is everything we wanted. We love them." The wedding is going to happen so soon that Mrs. Bennet can't come, which, to the happiness of everyone.
Yeah, she sends a snippy letter at least.
Yes. And he wants like a London wedding, which she loves because that, means that it can just be her London people. And they get married, they have a nice little life. He's done better. And what we need to explain to you is like, so he had a lot of he has a lot of self-doubt about his worth because he is like the second son, so he's not really bringing a lot to the
Yeah,
table.
he's not getting much of an inheritance, he's not getting an estate,
Yeah.
and as the youngest son, he kind of had to pick a profession. So he has a profession, even if it's a lawyer, even if it's a respectable profession, like she is nobility, and having a profession is like a you're a worker thing.
And he wasn't like he was like in year 1, like he was a little babito lawyer, and so he was like, "Okay, if I can improve my situation and get really good, then I would be in a better situation to be able to propose to her." And he works really, really hard on the 2 cases we hear about in the second half of the book, and he wins them, and he's like, "Yeah, I did it."
Mhm.
And he's like, they go away to the lakes, he's like, "Yeah, I'm in a good position, everything is great." But he knows that Ryder is kind of interested in Mary, and he's unsure if Ryder would be a better fit for Mary.
Yeah, or
And
if
kind of
it would be honorable for him to
yes,
step back, if he should put her wellness over his
this
happiness or something
it
dumb like that. God
dumb like
knows.
that and being like, that would be a better fit. And then when he finds out that Ryder is actually now really freaking wealthy and is
Mhm.
inheriting
Mhm. And they
all
also
this
have
stuff.
this little exchange of how well her oldest sister were wed as well.
Yeah, and he kind of you can tell he's really self-conscious about not having the fortune, not having the
Mhm.
estates, and she's like, "No, no, no, not everybody wants that." And she turns it around on him. She was like, "Everybody wants the girl with the fortune who's coming with a giant dowry. Like, yeah, plenty of men are fortune hunters. What are you talking about?" And he's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, yeah," but it stuck with him. And so then when he finds out that Ryder's like wealthy now and going to get all this stuff, he's like, I should just let her marry Ryder. And so it wasn't that Ryder told him he was going to propose and he was standing aside for like because he didn't act soon enough and
No,
now his friend was
no,
going to do
it's
it.
just these two dummy people being emotionally contrived and, self-deprecating to a fault.
Yep. And then when she went with Mr. Ryder's suggestion to stay on the mountain, he was like, "Wow, yeah, she's really into this guy. I
She
really." And he's
she
like,
she picked him over me.
and he I can't watch this as much as I've resigned myself to this fate. I can't
Mhm.
watch it. So he ran
It is
away.
simply too painful.
He didn't have something important that took him away that night. He just ran away.
Yeah.
And he goes and he hangs out with his parents, and then he's like, "Any minute now, we're gonna get a letter about them being engaged. I can't be here." So he literally runs away to a place where nobody can mail him, so he doesn't have to worry about it. And then when he finally decides to like confront life, he finds in his stack of mail that has been waiting for him because he's been gone for 2 months a letter from Caroline Bingley being like, "Yo, Mary Bennet loves you. She doesn't like Mr. Ryder. He proposed. She said no. She told me herself. Just letting you know, babes. Love, Caroline Bingley." And he's like, "So I was always gonna show up here." And he's like, "But that letter, I mean, I read it last night, and here I am."
Yeah, and I
And
ran
you're
out the
like,
door.
and he's like, "So we're always going to owe a little bit of our happiness to Caroline Bingley." And you're just like, "That's fucking
Oh
hysterical."
god,
And it's
yeah.
one of those things where honestly, they probably could have not said that line explicitly and it would have worked
Mhm.
like a little bit better. It would have been funnier.
Yeah.
Um
It's a
uh
little nitpick. But
yes,
yeah, it's worth mentioning.
but yeah, and again, the whole conversation as they're going over all of this is a little bit much. Like you
Yeah.
could have cut this up a little bit. And part of it is I'm so into the flow of an Austen novel and
Mhm.
it just
Yeah.
feels too generous. It feels like the fan fiction
I
that
thought
it
that
is.
the bit where Mary's like, "But why would Caroline do that?" as well, and it's like it's implicit.
Yeah,
We don't
we
need
know.
to have this conversation because Tom just responds with what we already know.
Yep. Um and Yeah, and so, like, that was it. He just was a scared, self-conscious babyito, and he projected his fears onto other people, but now they're
Mhm.
happy, and they're in love, and they buy the book ends with them looking at a house that, is going to be theirs that they're getting, and she's like, "This is gonna be my place," because again, house hunting, there's this huge thing about ending up in your own home that is
Mhm.
yours that you get to be the lady of.
Yeah.
And like and it ends, the book doesn't end with them at a wedding, babes. It ends with them how like in the house being like, "Yes, and this is how we're going to design it, and we're going to do it together, and we're going to decide on stuff together," much like Charlotte and Mr. Collins after they figured out some of their shit and realizing it's better to do things together than for her to keep giving him things to keep him busy so they never see each other. And that's the way the book ends.
Yeah. And
It's a
one of my remaining questions are: was Wordsworth even that good? I mean, I have minor qualms with the poet they picked to build the relationship around. I do understand how Wordsworth is a great English poet and it makes sense in universe, but I'm like, he's a little overrated, isn't he? Hmm.
yeah, and I
Watch
you know what
all the English people be like, "Ooh, we hate Lindbergh" in the comments.
the I like Wordsworth. I also like Byron, who also gets brought up in this. I think the reason it works is because he's so there's so much of that sense of feeling and the
Yeah,
sublime
yeah, he's
that
the
works.
true romantic
Yeah,
poet.
and
Like it's
it works for the role that he had to fill, whether his poetry is good or not. The feeling and the like
mhm,
the fascination with the sublime and like the lakes and stuff, like it
mhm.
that stuff I think works for it. But I mean, there are some Wordsworth poems I like, but he's not my favorite.
There's a couple I like too, and a lot of them that I find are a little verbose and blathery.
Yes.
Uh, sorry, this is not a roast of Wordsworth. It was just on my notes. I just had to be like, okay, so that's the poet you picked for these
Picked.
rational people to be to lose their heads over, kind of. But it's a good juxtaposition, like, because Wordsworth is all about the emotion and
Yeah.
the lofty, the abstract, as opposed
Yeah.
to the practical.
Mhm.
So
Any other things in your notes that we
Um, we've gone through most of it. I did write at some point, "Are women terrible?" And the idea I had behind that was that this book kind of, at times, I felt went a little far with the antagonism of some of the women against each other. But in a way, that is also a mirroring of how women were in competition with each other. How even a sisterhood wasn't just a sisterhood of us
sisterhood?
against everyone else. It was also a you are still a commodity, and
And if there's one rich guy with a good fortune around, you all can't marry her
yeah,
or him,
and
excuse me.
and also, as Mary was told again and again, it's a mistake to forget this, because Mary was kind of prone to wanting to forget it.
Yes.
She was like, "Why can't I have male friends?"
No babes.
No go.
And one thing I will say is that I find that despite the fact that there are points where Mary is like out of the loop and has a little bit more of a modern sensibility, it doesn't actually feel modern. It feels like this is what happens when you aren't socialized in the way that everybody else is and you're kind of left to your own, because she never feels out of place. Like she doesn't feel like a modern woman dropped into, like she feels like I've never had friends so I don't know what that's like, so a guy
Mhm.
being friends with me seems fine,
Yeah.
because she still is super conscious of a lot of other things and rules and like propriety and stuff like that, so she doesn't feel out of place despite.
No. She is so cerebral too that she
Yeah.
will, anyone who can interact with her on an intellectual level, she will delight in that friendship, and she doesn't think of it as primarily, "Oh, this is a man." She
Yes.
thinks of it
No.
more as, "This is a pleasant person. We have a good time."
Yes, and it's someone I can connect with over this hobby, this special interest of mine.
Mhm.
And so I found that that worked really well. But you're right, there are a couple of points where it is like women in competition with each other, and especially in the beginning when like Mary's just getting ragged on all the time.
Mhm. And it was also something that the review I read of the book before we
Hmm.
started filming this, they actually gave a very critical review of this book, and one of the things that they fell very hard on was that they it thought that all of the women except Mary pretty much had their bad take, sort of, their bad edit, and that
Huh.
uh, they were shown only the worst sides of them, to which I don't entirely agree.
I mean, I wouldn't say
um
Jane falls into that category at all,
no.
or Mrs. Gardner, and I would even say Lizzie. Like, while there are moments where you see, like, Lizzie from the point of view of someone who is jealous of Lizzie, I didn't
Hmm.
feel it was, like, a bad faith take on her.
No, and especially since the story is told from Mary's perspective, as a Mary, having an Elizabeth as a sister must have been very hard. Like, it must have been
Absolutely.
challenging. And not
And
because Lizzie is a bad character in any way.
it there's something to be said that someone who, from your point of view, might be a really, like, chill background person from somebody else's person could be the someone that is super challenging for them, and I would disagree with that. I would say, listen, Mrs. Bennet and Lydia are not given anything, and Miss Bennet is never. But I would say she's no more like Mrs. Bennet than she is. The only thing we see more of is her actively being dismissive of Mary. But it feels, for
Hmm.
me, in character with the character we saw in the original.
She was always extremely overbearing, and uh it makes sense for her to be so focused on settling her daughters and being so hyper aware of their situation, and also having that sort of a little sense of stigma as being a woman who married up and wanting to
Yep.
continue that situation. Like, but she was always a very fussy, very exaggerated character who was even in her goodwill, very overbearing and very rude at
Yep.
times, you know?
I mean, she is.
Um,
She's one of the things Lizzie is the most embarrassed about at
mhm,
in Pride and Prejudice because her mother is fundamentally ridiculous
mhm.
and
I
often very
do.
rude.
I think maybe the only female character that I felt we didn't get to see many virtues from were Caroline, but
Yep. Yeah, I would say her and Lydia are the ones, but even then at the end I'm like, "Caroline, get your bag, babe. You saw an opportunity, you helped the plot along and you were
Yeah.
like, if I don't have to be in competition with you, let's go.
Yeah, and you
Get your
you
bag,
pushed
hon."
these two idiot ducks together.
Yeah, they
Forever
needed a
grateful,
push.
babe.
Yeah, she's looking at she's like, "Wow, y'all are let me," so I'm not I even by the end of it, I was like, Caroline, you do you." Because the other thing is Caroline ends up off in Italy with Ryder as living as husband and wife, but nobody knows if they're actually married. I
No.
love it.
And it's not romantasy where the girl enemy is just girl enemy without any emotional stakes and just mean for the sake of jealousy. Caroline Bingley has as much stake in the game as Mary does.
Yep, and
In
she's older
some
than
ways,
Mary.
yeah, in some ways even more, because she comes from a good family, she's older than Mary, and she has already been snubbed of a rather juicy prize. Like, she must be feeling it.
Yep. And again, because if you look at the difference between Darcy and Mr. Ryder, already Caroline has started doing the thing of needing to drop her
Mhm.
expectations. She's becoming a little Caroline, or not Caroline, she's becoming a little Charlotte Lucas. I'm
Mhm.
getting older. I need to secure myself a man. And she saw Ryder and she went,
Yeah,
okay,
and some of the contortions we see her go through at his side trying to please him are not
yep,
that dignified,
they
one
are
might
not.
say.
It's quite embarrassing. She is
Yeah.
trying so hard to get this and it again, she just wants the marriage. She is in but you get the sense that she actually might like Ryder because if she ran off without an actual marriage, it must be for something. Like
Oh,
I
I
would
think
like
she did. Mhm.
yeah. And so there but you can see like she has started getting practical about this. Her expectations have dropped
Mhm.
significantly because in the beginning when she's courting Ryder and trying to get this to happen, she's doing exactly what Charlotte said. You need to make sure they know you're overly interested. You need to not aim too high. She's picked a guy and at this point he's not super wealthy yet. He's just getting money from his rich aunt. Like
Mhm.
he himself is not wealthy and it's not until later in the book that he is going to end up having his own wealth and not be dependent on Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Yeah, that was unexpected, and she had hard line picked him before that.
For that. And so I'm like, girl, you must be like you're either Charlotte Lucasing or you must be into this guy, and I respect the hustle in both. Don't be a bitch to other women. We need to be like we want to be a girl's girl, okay? But also, you're out here and you're hustling, and shit's getting bleak.
Yeah,
Shit's getting
and
bleak for you.
sometime I thought that whenever they showed up together, it was a little funny.
It was so funny. Caroline's hysterical because she's just
Yeah.
like dressed to the nines and just
Mhm.
trying her. She's literally that. All I could think of was Charlotte Lucas being like, "You need to make sure he knows that if he asked, you would say yes, and you need to be overly." And I was like, "Yo, did you and Charlotte have a conversation, Caroline? What's
Mhm.
happening?" You're using the Lucas playbook.
Yeah, and how she just so pointedly ignores the fact that she knows that everyone else hates her. She's
Yep.
just like, "Nyeh, I shall bear this cross with my head held high."
House hunting, baby.
Yeah, and she's like, I would love to walk to the top of this mountain and get soaked in rain.
And she would not. Caroline
No.
Bingley has zero interest in
Mm,
that. So it
mm,
just it's it and so listen, I can understand why this book isn't for everyone, but it satisfied me and what I needed. Like, this is a beach read for me for sure. I
mhm.
would not say it's like an excellent book. It's not going up on like the tippy top of the list, but it's a good read. It's a nice
Yeah,
time.
I think it has a lot of merit, and I think, for the most part, she was very competent in handling the source material. She was very competent in how she strove to sort of emulate this lofty way of writing that was all the style back in Jane Austen's time, but without making it as inaccessible for the modern reader. Like, it's a
Yep,
pleasant midway, and I feel like
100%.
she caught that flavor of etiquette and conversation that we see in literature of the time. So it didn't strike my anachronism radar, for
Exactly.
which I am very thankful. It's the one
Nope.
reason why I could never ever ever watch Bridgerton.
Oh man, it is it's a rough go of it. You have
Yeah.
to turn literally you have to turn every brain cell off when watching Bridgerton. And I say this as someone who still fast forwards through the sex scenes because I just can't. I have no interest in watching people pretending to orgasm. Why are we doing this? I
Yeah,
hate it.
why?
I don't want my smut. I don't like smut and romance. I don't want, and I super don't want it in my period pieces.
Yeah,
Get it out.
no, three kisses in like 2 pages was a little much for me. I'm like,
Oh my
can we
god.
please get married before this?
Married! Guys, God forbid anybody sees you. You need to hurry this the fuck
Yeah,
up.
like an agreement to marry is not the done deal. You can't be doing this anymore. Think of propriety.
I mean, listen, just get married in a week and just keep your hands to yourselves until that baby
Mhm,
knows, and then it'll be
mhm,
okay.
mhm.
Hysterical. Thank
Yeah,
you for
hysterical.
getting Will to read this book, Elin. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. I will gladly accept any thanks. It is not easy to make the will do anything at all, as we all
No.
know.
And
So
but
yeah,
it has also
I'm
been a
really glad we
pleasure
did this.
talking to you about it. This has been a lot of fun. I just realized it's been
Yeah.
3 hours and it kind of flew by. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize we got to, like, 3 hours. I looked at it and I was like, "Oh,
Ah, we
holy
did good.
shit."
We did good. Oh, Will's gonna be so angry.
He's going to be so angry. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you all our beautiful viewers. If you got to this point, please
Yeah.
like,
Like,
subscribe,
comment, subscribe,
smash
and
that,
we will see you
like button.
later. Yeah, smash it. Smash it.
Bye.
Bye.